Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world, the Cellarcast, episode 198. As we inch closer and closer to episode 200, I will invite you to leave suggestions for topics down below. I think that's just what I'm going to do. I'm just going to crowdsource topic suggestions for the 200th episode. We've been collecting a couple. So feel free to leave them in the comments, and maybe when we get to that episode, we'll just go through them. I've personally been doing fine. Not much has changed. I think I have an idea of what my next video is going to be, and I'm excited to start working on it. Probably tomorrow-ish if I can get myself to stop being lazy. But I've enjoyed my little slightly extended break. I'd like to make more videos this year than last year. I'm very glad I was able to actually get out 10 videos. Oh god, how do you grow a channel that slowly? Well, speaking of, remember how I had a cavity that I got diagnosed with? Is that what you'd say? Diagnosed with? Do you get diagnosed with that? It was identified in my mouth. In the wisdom tooth, so it doesn't count. And it's sort of funny because one of the things that happened when I went to the dentist, it's my 5th dentist appointment ever. I haven't had dental insurance for very long. And they start, giving me the talking to about flossing and all that. I'm like, yeah, I know. But hey, I've gotten this far, and I've only had one cavity, and it's in the wisdom tooth, which, as I just said, doesn't count. And my grandparents, for Christmas, for whatever reason, they got me this really fancy toothbrush. It's not just a toothbrush. It's an entire tooth cleaning unit. It's a big affair. It's got its own station and all that. Basically, it is not mechanical. What's the word for it? A swirly, moving, vibrating toothbrush. What is that called? An automatic toothbrush? You know what I'm talking about. It's a vibrator for your mouth. But it also has this entire water flossing mechanism. Essentially, you've got this big tank that you fill up. It's not that big. You fill this tank up, the reservoir, with water, and then there's a tube that you attach to the bottom of the toothbrush, which itself is a massive unit. It's not like a regular piddly little toothbrush that you probably use. No, it's a big ridiculous gorilla-sized toothbrush. I genuinely have to two-hand this thing to get control over it while it's in my mouth. And there's this water jet inside the head that will shoot water between my teeth. I brush it like I'd brush my teeth, but it shoots water through them. And it flosses, I guess. It's very fast and scary when you're just shooting it into the sink to test it. And, I've never really been a flosser. I've just never been in the habit. My parents never really did it. And the few times that I have done it, it was always a very unpleasant experience, just sensory-wise. It was not a very, very pleasant time. But I tried it last night for the first time. Might as well make use of it. And my mouth felt used. It felt weird. First of all, I'm not used to having this big buzzing thing on my teeth. That was weird. But then also essentially washing my mouth out with water, which you do in the process of this. It does alleviate one minor nitpick I have about the toothbrushing experience, which is that after I spit out, my mouth is always dry. My mouth always gets dry because I'm spitting stuff out of my mouth. So if I floss afterwards and basically just shoot water into my mouth, most of it's running out. Most of it's just running out of my mouth, but it does kind of keep me a little more rehydrated. So that's cool. Other than that, I've been doing basically bum all, but feel bad for myself after the last stream. I'll get to that in a bit because I'm going to talk about the movies that we watched. Before that, I want to get to the comment review. That's right. If you have a question, you can leave it down below, and I'll get to it next time. So we have two real questions from the last episode. The first one is going to come from Ziggy995, who says, I laughed so hard at the Ortolan answer. Thank you. Horses sent me down the rabbit hole of Googling pony girls for several hours, so thank you for that. I saw that, and I realized I might have just given you like a new fetish. So you are welcome? Yeah, you're welcome. This is one of those, like, have I forever changed the trajectory of someone's life kind of things. Anyway, question. Your mention of playing Rogals reminded me of an earlier Cellarcast that talked about blobbers. Have you tried Shining the Holy Ark? It's a Saturn exclusive blobber with nicely aged CG sprites and overall a fun setup where you can hot swap active characters in your roster with those in reserve without losing a turn, so the combat can get quite rich. I have not. In fact, I haven't heard of this probably because it's a Saturn exclusive. I don't know if I don't think I've ever played an actual Saturn game. Definitely not on original hardware and not on emulation. I've never even really looked into Saturn emulation because my last impression of it was that it was extremely difficult and underdeveloped. The Saturn was not a highly selling console, and the community of people who would want a Saturn emulator just hasn't been as high as for something else like a Super Nintendo, right? So, ooh, that was a stiff neck. So no, I have not played it, and I have not even heard of it, but it does sound cool. It is, I did a quick look-see to see what it is. Shining the Holy Ark is actually in the... what series is it? Hang on. Shining Force. Yeah, the Shining Force series. It's developed by Camelot Software Planning, they did Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, and Golden Sun. Okay, but they're probably best known, well, they're like original titles are the Shining Force RPG series, which started back on the Genesis. And then, yeah, they've got Golden Sun. They did, they did that and a bunch of Mario Golf and Tennis spin-offs and that kind of stuff. I might check it out. It sounds fun. I do like a good blobber. I enjoy a good blobber. I'm going to talk about one later today. Wait, what the fuck? Okay. I don't know if anyone knew this. If you're not a YouTuber like me, but YouTube introduced this like auto-generated response feature to comments a while ago. So when I'm looking at people's comments on my videos from the studio dashboard, it gives me suggested replies to people's comments. And the reply to this question, which was about Shining the Holy Ark and also the Pony Girls. First one is, I haven't played that one, but it sounds interesting. The second one is, glad we could provide some laughs and questionable search history. What the fuck? What? Okay. Anyway, next question comes from Ryan Frisha, who leaves a very long comment, mostly about Mega Man 9. I'm glad you stuck up for the strengths of 7 and 8, Mega Man 7, and especially 8. They're way better than people gave them credit for when I was growing up. I agree. Very long section about all the stuff, all the strategies to get through Mega Man 9 easier. Which is why I didn't, and then apparently I didn't realize I was mistaken. Mistaken? Yeah. I thought that Mega Man 8 had come out... I thought that it came out on the Saturn? The Saturn first? Yeah. It came out very... Oh, God. Wow. Looking at the dates now, it's actually crazy. So it came out. Mega Man 8 came out first on the Saturn, January 97, and then a year, literally, essentially 12 months later, December. Oh wait, I totally read that wrong. PlayStation, December 96, Saturn, January 97. Okay, so it was PlayStation first. That's it. Okay, so the Saturn content was like extra stuff that they added later. All right. I also never realized that the fact that the empty displays in the museum at the start of the game, or near the end of the game, in 7, suggest they're like a potential reference to Cutman and Woodman being in 8, because they're missing. Haha. Okay, I think I'm going to steal a segment from the Brain Lords podcast and start asking your overrated, underrated, and accurately rated picks on things. I could probably assume that what that would look like for classic Mega Man, 2, 8, maybe 6, since when people do talk about it, it's about how good it is, respectively, which is curious to me, because no one talked about 6 when I was growing up, but now it's gotten a reappraisal, including from me. Well, I made a video on it. I always had that opinion. So instead, I'm going to ask, what are your most over, under, and accurately rated difficult NES/Famicom games? In this case, overrated would be a game that's easier than commonly cited, like Mega Man 2, and underrated would be harder. You could also just talk about hard games that are over/underrated in general, if that's easier. For me, Castlevania is way easier than people talk about it being. And then a bunch about Castlevania 3. More of an underrated example of Famicom difficulty, but Megami Tensei has one of the most bullshit things I've ever played, and then describes a soft lock that happens if you miss a key item that the game will just let you walk past. And Zelda 2 is really hard. Could just be a massive skill issue, but it's really clunky. I really want to like, if not love it, but I think I need a major self-adjustment to get to that point. You gotta be a better person. You need to be a better human being to mess with Zelda 2. Zelda 2 is a game that scales with your karmic debt. Now, this was actually a difficult question because I thought about it, and I honestly haven't played that many NES games. I haven't played like a lot of the big ones. It sort of struck me because I've been aware of them for so long, but many of them I've just never really tried out. Specifically when talking about like the hard Famicom NES games, so this led me to a page which is a real Wikipedia article on Nintendo hard. It's a real Wikipedia article on games that are considered Nintendo hard, and they have this whole big long list of like maybe 30-40 games on here. And I was going through them, and I'm like, I've played Castlevania and Mega Man, and that's it. None others. But it's stuff like Adventures of Bayou Billy, Battletoads, Bionic Commando, Double Dragon 3, Gauntlet, Ghosts and Goblins, Solomon's Key, which I think I've heard of. Silver Surfer, a lot of the classics, right? Yo-Noid. And I'm like, yeah, I haven't played most of these now that I actually look at this list. I haven't played that many Capcom big NES games. I don't know if these would be considered big. So I went to the expert. My wonderful, beautiful girlfriend, Katrina. I sent her the list. I said, have you played any of these? And do you think any of them are as hard as they're claimed to be? So she's played Battletoads, Bayou Billy, Fester's Quest, Punch-Out, The Lost Levels, and Yo-Noid. And she thinks that only Battletoads, Bayou Billy, and Fester's Quest are actually... Oh, and Mega Man 1 are actually as hard as they're typically chalked up to be, made out to be. I'd have to go on a replay of Mega Man 1 to get a reassessment of it. I haven't played it. It's probably the one I've played the least. That might be good. I've been playing so much Mega Man recently. So in her words, if you struggled with Punch-Out, Or the Mario the Lost levels. You're a little baby. You're a little bitch. Sorry. Sorry to use offensive gendered language, but that's what she says. Implicitly. I should do a stream. Honestly, maybe I should just do like a stream series of going through all the NES, all these games, and seeing if they're as tough as they're made out to be. I love all the citations here that are on this list. And then also talk about hard games that are over/underrated in general, if that's easier. That actually got me thinking about this whole thing about perception and what different people find difficult. So I find it very hard. The concept of a game that is hard, what did you say? What's the term? Underrated in terms of difficulty. That's very curious, and I can't really think of a game that I've encountered where people have said it was really easy and I had a ton of trouble with it. I might not have liked it, I might have kind of bounced off of it, but I would never say like, oh, it's really hard. Like that wouldn't have been my issue with it. And I think that the reason I don't really have a good answer for that one is because I think that people are going to have different answers based off, I know that some people will have an answer to that question of what's an underrated difficult game. But I think it has most to do with your actual like experience. So I have played a lot of different genres. I play a lot of different genres of games, and I'm not equally experienced in all of them by any means. But I'm used to learning new systems and learning new games and getting to grips with stuff. I'm a proponent of approaching something on its own terms. And with some games, that's more important than others. A lot of people consider Dark Souls to be really, really difficult. I would say that Dark Souls is a game that really expects you to meet it on its terms. It's not going to meet you in the middle. A lot of more, I'd say that like a lot of, maybe the term like poppy games, like mainstream games, not to say that Dark Souls isn't mainstream. I don't know if I'd go that far to say it is or isn't. A lot of like mass market games will do a lot to come to you, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's just how they choose to approach the player. How are they, how easy are they going to make it for you to kind of play the way that you want? Dark Souls wants you to figure out how to play Dark Souls. And then once you've gotten that prerequisite homework out of the way, you can really start engaging with it and unraveling it and working through its system. Though I had the whole fucking stupid Rubik's Cube analogy. Same thing with something like Mega Man. Mega Man rewards specific skills. If you are coming into Mega Man from like a Mario platformer, you might have a really difficult time because it just expects you to play the game very differently. This is something I noticed when I remember Donkey's video about game difficulty when he was talking about Mega Man 11, which I thought had a almost perfect difficulty curve. I thought it was really well designed and laid out. I've also played a lot of Mega Man games. He is quite famously a Mario guy. Like that's his favorite. Mario's his favorite thing ever. And he was like, oh my God, this is such a huge difficulty spike. And I was like, really? And I think that those are just different skills. It's just things that require different skills. Now, for someone who has not played certain genres and might not be used to learning new genres, they might have real trouble with something like that. For instance, let's say that you're like a professional Apex Legends player, and you get invited to this tournament series where one of the games that you're going to be playing is Street Fighter V, and you have never like done a single Link combo in your life. And Street Fighter V, a game notable by fighting game players for having extremely easy combos for the most part, There's some difficult stuff in there, but for the most part, it's very simple. Links are generally pretty easy in that game. They're like, oh, this game's so easy. And you are trying to do it, and you're like, this feels frame perfect. This feels like a level of precision that has never been asked of me. A type of precision at a level that has never been asked of me ever. This shit is impossible. This is so difficult, and everyone's calling this easy. Which I imagine is probably pretty frustrating. That's an experience that certain people will have. It's easy. It's I think comparably much easier to find something that is overrated in terms of difficulty. Let me try to think of an example. Overrated in terms of difficulty. I think that it's actually kind of hard to come up with examples. I think that the way that people used to talk about Dark Souls, and mind you, I've only played 3, so maybe that's the shitty baby game for babies that's super easy. But once I figured it out, I thought it was like fine in terms of challenge. It throws occasional bullshit at you and is mean, but it's like generally fine. Some areas suck, but it's generally fine. But I remember the way that people were talking about it when I was like in middle school was like, it's the hardest thing ever. It's the hardest thing ever. And I think that also partially has to do with the context that it released in, which was a time when games were, a lot of big popular games were more than happy to come over to your house, and they do house calls and they'll suck your dick and they won't even charge you for it in terms of difficulty. Very handholdy. To use fewer words, to have more time to write fewer words. A game that I personally found, let's see, I've already been talking a lot about Mega Man. I think something that I found pretty easy. That's actually really tough. I'm gonna actually sit. I feel like I had something in my head, and I'm gonna sit and think about that for one moment longer and like pause the recording and all that. Oh my god. So I did a quick cursory search to kind of stoke my mind, and I found an IMDb page called The 20 Hardest Video Games of All Time. I don't know if these are in order. I think they are. I think that they are. I'm just going to read you these in order, going from number... I haven't even made it all the way to the bottom. Number 1, The Lion King. I don't know which version, but yeah, The Lion King, the 16-bit one. Number 2, Hollow Knight. Okay, I haven't played Hollow Knight. Give me a fucking break, man. Number 3, Cuphead. Oh, come on, man. Super Meat Boy. Okay, Sekiro, Doom Eternal, specifically on Ultra Nightmare difficulty. Okay, God of War Ragnarok on the Give Me God of War difficulty. Last of Us Part 1 on Grounded difficulty. DMC5 on Dante Must Die. What the fuck is this? What is... This is just an Elden Ring YouTube animation series. Carbot Animations Elden Ring. Did they not have Elden Ring? Again, I don't believe that. Bloodborne, Ninja Gaiden from 2004, Dark Souls 1, Neo, Lies of P, Ghosts and Goblins, Battletoad, Geometry Dash. What are you? Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. And a difficult game about climbing, which I've never heard of. Is this like a Getting Over It ripoff? Wow, this is hilarious. This is an awesome list. This is a great list. Can you leave comments on people's lists? Okay, I can't see. 101,000 views on this? I guess I'm not helping. What a list. What a... Okay, Hollow Knight number 2. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Something came to my brain. Shin Megami Tensei 4. Not as difficult as I think a lot of people made it out to be. I didn't finish the game, but I remember, okay, I found out apparently people have have, like, people go to therapy over the Minotaur boss, which kind of blew my mind. That's like the first real boss that you fight in the game. And it just wasn't that hard. I think SMT is another good example of what I'm talking about. SMT does not necessarily play like other RPGs. It's not really a game that you can grind in. Instead, the way you get stronger is by, like, demon fusing and planning your party around the encounter. So it might take you a couple attempts to figure out a strategy to be like, okay, what is this guy weak to? How do I optimize my party for that? But, like, I don't remember it being that hard. Am I just weird? I'd never played one of them before. It was my first SMT game. Don't usually play particularly difficult RPGs. I did not have a very hard time with it. Yeah, and I find something that I think is accurately rated is also probably not a very interesting answer. I think most games are pretty accurately rated in terms of difficulty. I remember, like, you know, apparently when Doom came out, Doom was considered really difficult. Because, yeah, no one had ever played a game like that. Maybe some of the worst designed levels in Doom are pretty hard. If you're new to the genre, but I could probably sleepwalk through Doom at this point, because the bar just gets higher. Most of difficulty tends to just be, there's two kinds of difficulty, or there's a few different kinds of difficulty. There's difficulty, which is just, you gotta learn the game, and sometimes that can get to, like, an unreasonable level. I think a game like I Divine Cybermancy takes it to a unreasonable level of, like, why do I have to engage this deeply to even understand what is going on gameplay-wise? Why? And then there's difficulty where it's just like a what the fuck kind of thing. There's a great video on this. I think it's called Mega Man X6 versus Mega Man in Base, 2 types of difficulty, something like that. Where essentially the comparison made is that they're both pretty hard games, but in very different ways. Mega Man in Base, as I'll talk about later, is a game that just, it's like, wow, they're throwing a lot at me. You kind of gotta, like, white knuckle the controller a little bit to make it through Mega Man in Base in one piece. It's just generally harder than most of the series. But and I think that there's some wonky ass design in MM&B, but most of the game is just like, okay, you just kind of got to be better at Mega Man, at those skills that it rewards. Mega Man X6 is just like, what the fuck? What are you? Why did you do it like this? Because it's just actually poorly designed. It's just like poorly made. Bad ideas executed poorly and confusingly, because it was made by, like, the D team at Capcom. So yeah, that's probably all I had to say about difficulty. That's probably all I had to say. And now finally, God, 30 minutes in, I want to talk about the previous stream that I did, which you can't. I wasn't gonna talk about it, but I will, because you cannot find it anywhere. So let this be a historical record. We'll get to why in a second. So I did one of my watching public domain horror and sci-fi movie streams, which are a lot of fun to do. YouTube hates that I do them, though. They actually hate the public domain, and they hate you. And we watched a couple movies. I want to talk about them. So first up was City of the Dead, aka Horror Hotel, from 1960, just 60, 1960 nothing. City of the Dead is probably easily the best one that we watched. It is a genuinely really cool horror movie that I think holds up tremendously well today. It's one of those horror movies that feels tropey in a way that is almost foundational to the genre. Like, it's doing things that are so cliched, but it's so damn good that you're like, okay, either this is just an immaculate execution of a really straightforward horror movie, or this is like doing it so well, kind of like Halloween, for the slasher genre, that it becomes the benchmark. It becomes the inspiration for an entire like type of horror film. The main plot, very simple. Christopher Lee plays this incredibly hammy a college professor who teaches a class on the history of witchcraft. And one of his students, played by Patricia Jessel, is really interested in it. This is like one of her passions. And he tells the story about this witch who was burned at the stake at this little town, I'm assuming in New England. It's like Pilgrim times. And she casts a curse over the town. And she's so curious that she wants to go do a 2-week research trip to this town called Whitehaven. Right? Or White Tree? Something like that. Apparently it takes place in Massachusetts. So she drives down there and shit's weird. This movie has just stellar... So many things about it are great. Stellar cinematography, stellar atmosphere, great score. There's this super cool... I want to get this out of the way because I think it's so neat. The score is like a very traditional 1960s Hollywood orchestral score for a horror film. Lots of strings and atmospheric... And then like a couple tracks at a couple moments, they bring in like this guitar, like this really twangy sounding guitar to just play a couple notes. The closest thing that it reminds me of is Biken's theme from Guilty Gear Strive. Like the first goes and just like the first bit of that with the guitar where it's like, I don't even know if it's a regular guitar or a bass guitar. I can't quite tell because I'm stupid. But that like bow, bow, like that sound, that really low kind of almost like throaty guttural sounding guitar, just for like a couple notes, and it's really just whoa. I've never heard something like that before, but it adds such a cool little sting to the soundtrack. Lots of cool editing stuff in this as well. Speaking of sound, lots of moments of the soundtrack just creeping in without you even realizing it as stuff starts to get more intense and weird, and just there's this kind of anxiety and stress as she's like driving, and then there's another scene where she's walking around town and people are just stopping and staring at her. Constant fog just billowing all over the place. It looks great. Making the most use out of a studio lot I've ever seen. And then suddenly, bah, pure silence. Nothing. When there's a cut to something, a lot of very harsh cuts. A cut to something, a door slams, she goes in somewhere, just silence. And there's just this constant, just masterful push and pull of tension and emotion throughout all these different things in the editing process. It's super cool. Who's the editor on this? They even list that back then. Director, writer, producer, editor, a guy named John Pomeroy. What else did he work on? Dublin Nightmare, The Valiant, The Shadow of the Cat, Two Left Feet. A bunch of stuff that I've never heard of. Svengali, I guess an inspiration for Svengoolie. Yeah, but just fantastic edited. I think that horror is one of the genres that benefits the most from a great score and a great editor. It really puts your skills to the test. I'd love to like edit a horror thing. It seems really fun to do that someday. And speaking of cinematography, just amazing, great shot composition. It's a black and white film, and it looks so good. It looks so good. The shadows are so dark, and the highlights are so bright. It's super high contrast. The blocking and the composition of everything is awesome. There's just some gorgeous, it's super cool looking shots. I love this one shot of her looking out the window of her hotel room. and you just see this procession of hooded figures walking through this foggy town with their backs to her through the window, and they're framed with the what are the little sections that divide the window panes? I don't know what those are called, but it's framed in like this cross, this slightly like askew cross. It's so cool. It's such strong directing. The movie's not perfect. It essentially, the biggest problem with the film is that halfway through, the movie just restarts. And the reason for this is kind of funky. So, City of the Dead, aka Horror Hotel, was originally intended to be I think like 30-40 minute episode of a horror anthology series on television that never got made. And I guess once that fell through, one of the producers or something was like, extend it, basically take this one episode, this episode length thing, and extend it to be a whole movie. And so halfway through, the movie just stops because that's like the end of the episode. And then you spend the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's really weird, basically redoing the movie from the beginning. Like, now, she goes missing, and then her brother and boyfriend go searching. They go to the town to search for her, and just recreate the first chunk of the film. Like, down to, like, almost beat for beat, almost shot for shot. Like, doing the same moments. There's a guy who's, like, a hitchhiker that she picks up, who has a he's creepy, he's got a weird connection to the owner of the hotel that she's staying at, and when she walks into her room, the camera holds on the outside, and he like swings around dramatically, all spooky like, from around the corner, and the camera zooms in on him. The brother gets the same hotel room. They do the exact same shot. It's so weird. He also like hitchhikes with the brother, and then like does this thing where he disappears, and so it's so weird. It recreates all the same moments, and it just doesn't hit the same way. Like, it's a much weaker part of the film because, one, they're redoing all the same moments, which again are really cool in the first half, but in the second half are just like, I've seen this before. It's almost comical. Like, they do this they rehearse this. This is just protocol for all the weird, maybe ghost people of this town. And also, they are investigating a mystery that you already know the answer to. They know exactly what happened. And there's a little bit of tension because you know that there's a danger in the town, but it's just not as compelling. But again, a lot of the same good things, the same general strong directing and editing and score are all present. It's just the actual script is like, doesn't know what to do until you hit the climax, the actual like last 15 to 20 minutes of the movie, where it just picks up again, ends in a totally different way than the first half ends, and is just awesome. The climax of City of the Dead is just fucking rad as hell. It is so good. Incredibly exciting. I was actually on the edge of my seat. I think everyone in chat was really engaged by the movie. Super dope imagery, just these awesome shots, like oh my god, I don't even want to spoil it. I don't even want to spoil it, like the actual finale. Really sick film, really good movie. I haven't seen anything else by the director. This was his directorial debut, a guy named John Llewellyn Moxey. And he's not known for like a whole lot of big stuff. He did a lot of TV directing. He did 18 episodes of Murder, She Wrote. Okay. Yeah, a lot of like random this is by the 80s though. I mean, his career might have had like a downturn. Wait. Oh, okay. Never mind. I thought I saw something I didn't. Yeah, a lot of TV what's this stuff in the 60s? Like, what did he do after this? Foxhole in Cairo. The Cheaters, Coronation Street, Death Trap. I don't know. Maybe these are worth checking out. Or maybe City of the Dead is a fluke. Yeah, Christopher Lee is awesome. He just plays this. He is just committing to the bit so hard. He takes this witchcraft shit seriously. It is more serious than a heart attack. And it's awesome. It's a great film. Really fun performance from him. You gotta go watch it. And you can just watch it in HD on YouTube for free. It's like an hour 15. Next, we moved on to a much worse movie called The Brain That Wouldn't Die. This is from 1962. It's directed by a guy named Joseph Green, and it is a sci-fi horror movie, I guess, that is... How would I even... Let's see. He's got another movie called The Brazen Women of Balzac. Definitely a bit of an exploitation director. The Brain That Wouldn't Die is about this guy who's a surgeon, and he's experimenting with bringing people back to life. And his girlfriend gets decapitated in a car accident scene, which is probably the best scene of the movie. It's actually fairly intense and kind of anxiety-inducing, because you feel how fast they're going. And then he takes her head back to his secret lab and resurrects just her head. And she's like, I hate being a head, kill me. And he's like, no, I gotta get you a new body. And then most of the movie is him just going around town, scoping out hot women that he could maybe take back to his lab and roofie to remove their heads from their bodies. But he can't be seen. He can't be the last person seen with a missing woman. So the whole movie is just like it's so clear that the writer has no idea what to do or how to build a plot. Because the whole movie is just, he meets a woman. Oh, she goes, hey, baby, are you looking for somebody? And he's like, well, you could say that I'm looking for somebody. Body. Wink at the camera. And she's like, let's go back to my place. With my friend. My friend is here. And he's like, actually, I don't want pussy. Bye. And he just moves on. It's that for genuinely 40 minutes. And occasionally you cut back to the lab where the head is arguing. Okay, it's so funny. The guy who plays the main actor, a guy named Jason Evers, he plays like a very stoic, kind of serious character. That's how he sort of plays it. Oh my god, he actually went by a pseudonym for this movie. That's so funny. Oh my god, he's from Escape from the Planet of the Apes. He's in that movie? What? Anyway. He plays it pretty straight, pretty down to earth. And then the guy who plays his Igor assistant and the woman who plays the head are just so dramatic and flowery in their dialogue. It genuinely feels like they are written, these scenes and these characters are written by different people, which they might be, because the movie has 3 writers. Let's see, Doris Brent. What was she? Known for The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Ooh, great. Joseph Green. What did he write? What did he get up to? Yeah, just this. Rex Carlton. What did he write? Something called Unearthly Stranger. Nightmare in Wax. The Rebel Rousers, which is about the Confederacy. A couple Secret File USA, the spy TV show. And he wrote something called The Angry Breed. Okay. So it's not like the top talent working on this. and it feels like they're so wildly different. Like, the main scientist guy will go around being like, "I'd like to take you back to my house to give you a consultation," wink wink. And then you jump to in the laboratory, and the Igor guy is like, "Ah, but I have been cursed by God with this besmited arm. And it was once, twice, 3 arms, which the doctor attempted to replace for mine. And none succeeded. But now, with this new serum, he may yet attain his dream." And you're like, who the fuck? What? Anyway, the movie ends with the, like, homunculus flesh monstrosity that's been trapped in the closet, like R. Kelly. The whole movie escapes and kills the fuck out of the doctor and the Igor guy. And I was waiting for it to just be like a tall guy. I didn't even know that if they were going to show him. But they do. And the makeup is not that bad. It is a genuinely kind of creepy, weird looking monster. Shout out to the makeup department, I guess. Yeah. Very cheesy movie, but fun for a casual watch through. Then we moved on to The Ape from 1940. This is a 1-hour movie with Boris Karloff. Okay. So I'm going to get to I'm going to give you like the rundown of what happens in the first like 20 minutes. Because I can't just come out and say it. Because I really need to build up to what this movie is about. So, there is a circus in town, in this like small town in, I don't know, somewhere in America. A circus comes to town. After it's done, the titular ape, a gorilla that they have as a sideshow, or like an animal show, whatever, part of the show, which is this actually pretty good looking big gorilla costume, strangles its trainer and escapes to cause havoc. The trainer is brought to the doctor, who is played by Boris Karloff, the town doctor, and he is he starts treating him. The doctor, Boris Karloff doctor, is also his main patient is this young woman who can't walk. She's paralyzed from the waist down, and he's been trying to work on ways to help her walk again and physical therapy and stuff like that. Obviously, unsuccessfully. So the ape is wreaking havoc. The doctor tries to treat the trainer at first, but then he's like, no one would really bat an eye if he died from his injuries. And then he kills him and steals his spinal fluid, which he theorized would create a serum that would cure paralysis. Because don't you know, there is an epidemic of paralysis in the community. Whatever that means. You never see another person in the whole film who is paralyzed, but there is an epidemic of paralysis. Everyone's getting paralyzed. It's the hot new thing. So he gives the serum. He creates the serum using the spinal fluid. He gives it to the girl, and she actually starts to feel a little bit in her feet and her legs. And he's like, oh my God, I was right the whole time. It works. And he's talking to his mom, his elderly mother, whom he lives with. And he's like, this is awesome. He puts like the vial down on the table like a fucking idiot because it's like a completely cylindrical glass vial. And then like grabs her by the shoulders and he's like, I'm a genius. And then the cylinder falls over and crashes and smashes all over the floor. And they look down at it and he's like, I'm such a fat fucking chud. But his luck turns around because he is attacked by the gorilla. The gorilla smashes through his window and he gets into a tussle with it where he just like, he throws water in its face or chemicals in its face or something and then stabs it in the back and kills it. But this is not it's not as bad as it seems because he sees potential. So this is what the movie is actually about. Boris Karloff dresses up as an ape so that he can go around killing people to extract their spinal fluid to turn into a serum that will cure paralysis. That's what the movie is about. And he only kills like 2 people or 3 people eventually near at the end. Because most of the film, like, it's not that they're like, hey, you know, the dogs are really, they're really going crazy around your house. Like, why is that? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Like, because they're trying to track this gorilla down, which they don't know is dead. And he's like, I don't know why they would think that there would be a gorilla at my house. There's not a gorilla. It's also not clear if he makes the costume or if he's just, like, in the skin. Like, did he taxidermize it? What? So he's not even, like, that successful. Like, he's not even, like, I mean, I guess he's got a killing spree to kill. He does kill, like, 4 people total. But there's not that many kills. This is sort of like a proto-slasher movie, but really shitty. And then it just ends with him, like, getting too cocky and fucking up and just killing a guy who's, like, on watch, because they actually set up a pretty cohesive neighborhood watch to look out for the gorilla. And then they find him and shoot him, and he, like, collapses on his front steps. And the sheriff is like, oh my god, and he goes up and he's like, wait, this is a costume? And he takes the head off and he's like, what the fuck? Doctor? Boris Karloff, it's you? And then the whole town is there for some reason, including the paralyzed girl. And she is so struck, she's so awestruck by what she's seen that without thinking, she just stands up out of her wheelchair and starts walking towards him slowly without realizing that she's doing it. And his last moments, suddenly he is out of the gorilla costume. He is completely out of the gorilla costume between shots. His last moments are him going, I told you so, you fucking idiots. You all doubted me, but look who's laughing now. Look who's laughing. All it took was a little gorilla action, but you guys you didn't believe in me. You guys sitting there in the gorilla suit going, you guys didn't believe in me. But you'll see. You'll all see. And then he dies, and the epilogue of the film is the girl and her boyfriend being like, oh my god, isn't this so awesome that I can walk again? We've got our whole lives ahead of us now. All it took was a little bit of ape action, a little bit of ape murder. Who cares? It's so weird. It's like a wholesome, happy ending. What the fuck? What was this? How was this, Oh my god, Boris? That's Boris Karloff? What the fuck? He looks so different. Wait. No, that is a different Boris Karloff. No, wait, it is. No, it's the same guy. What the fuck? Wait, I knew it was Boris Karloff. I always get him... Even when I'm talking about it, I always get Boris Karloff confused with someone else. I was literally just saying, what is wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Just... Okay, what are the... Let me see. Is there any, like, trivia? This is the final film in his 6-picture contract. That's really funny. He was like, just make an 8 movie. Not a lot of interesting trivia for this one. Yeah, is it great? No, but it's like an hour and it's pretty goofy. There's not even a lot of great gorilla scenes, but it is pretty fun. And then finally, we watched the culprit of the night, the Brainiac, aka El Barón del Terror. Sorry to excuse my accent. This is a Mexican horror film from 1962. A lot of 62s in this episode, by a director named Chano Urueta. Again, I'm bad at pronouncing this stuff. And it's... Okay, so we did not get very far in the movie. I don't even really want to talk about it too much. It's about a guy who puts a curse on these people's descendants. And then, like, 300 years later, he comes back as a monster. Yeah, so this one got my stream taken down because of genuine copyright fraud. So this was like a whole thing and a half that I had to figure out. Essentially what happened was that I'm streaming, everything's cool. We have no issues. We have no issues with this stream. In previous streams, when YouTube has had a problem... Okay, so first of all, it's super weird because when I've gotten a content ID match on YouTube, it's always happened... Like, if I stream the Game Awards, they always play some copyrighted thing. And then I only ever get the content ID after the stream is done, and it's basically up as a video. That's when it gets processed and all that. For some reason, when I do these public domain movie streams, they scan it as it's happening, and in past streams, I can't believe I'm saying this, but at the very least, they've had the decency to just pause the stream momentarily until the copyrighted content stops playing, which is an unfortunate like interruption and means that we can't stream it anymore. But it's at the very least not like we can just move on to something else. This time, just out of nowhere, I'm sitting there watching the movie, having a good time, talking to chat. Suddenly, with no warnings at all, the stream is taken offline and deleted and removed. Not just like it's privated or blocked. I can't even see it. I can't even see it in my YouTube studio. It is erased from existence. With no warning, they didn't pause the stream. They didn't send me an email alert, which they usually do. They didn't even send me an email alert when the stream got taken down, which they usually do, which was ridiculous. I was like, no one's talked in chat for a second. I tab back and I'm like, what the fuck? Oh my God, the stream has been taken down. I usually have my phone on standby just in case something like that happens, so I can at least know as soon as it occurs. This time, nothing, no warning at all. I couldn't even see what got me claimed and who claimed it. Zero information. Just totally left in the dark. So here's what I did. I figured that it was probably the Brainiac. So I screen recorded a few minutes of the movie and then uploaded it to YouTube. Didn't even publish it or anything, just uploaded it and kept it as a draft. And then when it got scanned and checked for copyright, I got a claim from a company called Veranda Entertainment, I think. Veranda something. Which is some kind of Spanish-speaking distribution company. They put movies out on like Tubi and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, what is the connection? Because this is a public domain film. If you don't know, so first of all, I knew that this was fraudulent right off the bat. If you don't know, which I didn't know this until I looked it up. Not many people have heard of this movie. So Chano Urueta is the director. He is a storied Mexican filmmaker. He's got over 100 movies to his name. He also did acting in them, and he was a producer and writer and stuff like that. And most of his stuff is like genre film. A lot of like horror, mystery, romance stuff. He's kind of like a fairly prolific classic Mexican filmmaker. Well, from what I understand, there's not a lot of info about him, but towards the end of his life, he was in a lot of debt. Specifically, he was in a lot of debt with the government, and the Mexican government, took him to court over it. In the middle of the proceedings, he was like in his 70s, and the stress of the court case caused him to have a heart attack. So he died in debt with the government, and essentially the Mexican equivalent of the IRS went in on his assets, which essentially amounted to his back catalog. So they seized all of his movies and made them technically owned by the government, which means publicly owned, which means public domain. So his whole filmography of over 100 classic films should all be public domain. They're owned by the government. There's literally a court case about it, in which this stuff happened. Well, I thought it was really curious that when the video got claimed, it shows you what it was claimed. For instance, if there's a licensed song, it'll be like, here's the song. It's a Metallica song. It'll be like, Ride the Lightning Metallica. And if it's a movie, it'll be like the name of the movie. Well, this one said El Barón del Terror dash película completa. I think that's the right order in Spanish. And I was like, that's a weird name. That doesn't sound like the title that a movie would be under. Baron of Terror complete film. That sounds like a YouTube re-upload. Surprise, surprise. Look up that exact title, El Barón del Terror. Película completa. There is a Spanish-speaking YouTube channel called what is it called? It's like armchair in Spanish, like batuca, I think, something like that. I probably just said like a horrible slur. Who has re-uploaded this public domain film under that exact title. This is just a channel that dumps public domain films on YouTube, which I've got no problem with. The problem is that, hey, guess who that YouTube channel is owned by? That's right, Veranda Entertainment. So, Veranda Entertainment owns this YouTube channel that dumps public domain films that they don't own, that no one can own, no one owns or can own, onto YouTube. But because Veranda owns the YouTube upload, they get to claim that they own the Baron of Terror. Which, by the way, I'm providing like commentary and stuff. I mean, that's not as even... I shouldn't even have to make that argument. It's public domain. It just really pissed me off. It was extremely disheartening. I sent an appeal in. I said the movie's public domain. I should not be getting punished for this because I have a warning now on my channel, which I've gotten before. It's not a strike, but it is a warning. Of course, within a few hours, the appeal was rejected because YouTube enables copyright fraud all the time. They have no real principles in regards to that. And no one's going to go to bat for the public domain. You would be shocked at how few protections there are for the public domain. And that's, like, this whole thing really pisses me off because I'm on a very personal level, like, I love the public domain. I love the idea of the public domain, that there is just artwork out there that cannot be owned by any corporate entity, that it's just art for the people, for the public at large. These things are just, they are as universal as they are as what would you non-commodifiable? I don't know what you'd call that. They belong to everyone. Just free art. I love that idea. I feel very strongly about that. Do I think everything should be in the public domain? I mean, I'd love to live in a world where that would be possible. But for the stuff that is in there, I'm glad that it's there. And those streams are really fun for me. I love spotlighting the public domain. There's so much great stuff that you can watch for free. And that's great and old and super cool, like fucking City of the Dead or The Ape from 1940. And as a concept, like, I have a ton of fun doing them. I think that the audience really enjoys them. It's a very unique concept. No one really does that. No one really does this idea of just watching movies and stuff. It's a fun, chill time, and we just kind of get exposed to new stuff that no one's ever heard of, and fun, obscure romps. And it just kind of feels like, in some way, like a principled slap in the face. It feels like the man bearing down on me. And specifically, like, the backstory of why a movie like The Brainiac is in the public domain. Because if the money was at least going in some way... First of all, there's no money being made off the stream. by anyone because they fucking deleted it. If there's any money that's being made, if it's at least going to his family, or maybe the production company, even even the production company, I'd be like, okay. But it's just going into the fucking pockets of these people who haven't done shit. You didn't even buy the rights. Not even in like the made up fucking, who owns the licenses, like the made up abstract sense of ownership. You haven't even done anything. You haven't even bought the rights to it. You're just fucking re-uploading it on YouTube and saying that you own it, and you get to make money off the legacy of this fucking storied filmmaker? That's bullshit. That pisses me off. Ugh. That pisses me off. Like, how many people? 10. The street. I don't get super high viewership, but there's 10 people who don't watch Mexican horror movies from the 60s, who would have watched that stream and been like, damn, that was a cool, memorable movie. I've heard it's a fucking fascinating film. Maybe I'll finish watching it on my own time. Maybe I'll make the video about it, and it'll get claimed by them. Who would have never been exposed to it. And you have like a little appreciation now for like classic Mexican filmmaking. Like, it just pisses me off. It just pisses me off that these fucking, what do you even do? What do you even do, man? And I there's no happy ending to this. There's no happy ending. There's no real resolution. It's just, I got fucked. I just got fucked over. I can't do anything even close to something like this stream for 3 months. It's 3 months until the warning goes away. If I get popped again on a community guidelines strike for copyrighted content, I'm going to have a strike on my channel, and you really don't want a strike on your channel because those never go away. So I have to play it real conservative. It's like after I got popped for what I also felt was a bullshit reason on the TLC video. And I'm like, okay, well, I just can't do anything even kind of out there because fucking community guidelines strike would, I have to be very conservative with what I do now. It pisses me off. I guess in a small way, I can tell you through this podcast to go check out the public domain. Maybe get into it and watch some stuff with your friends or something like that. Check out the Brainiac. Check out the works of Chano Urueta. He's got tons and tons of crazy movies. Yeah. I don't know. It was just shitty. I was in a sour mood. For the rest of the night. And there's no real good thing. I just can't do with streams like this. I don't think that I'm going to do any more public domain streams, which honestly really sucks to even say. It really sucks to just throw in the towel on that. I can't do them publicly. Maybe I'll do something on like my Patreon. I don't know, but that's not as fun. I guess it could be fun, but part of the fun of streaming on YouTube and like the reason for it is like, well, my audience is on YouTube, so I can start up a stream on a random Saturday and some people might just, walk in and you don't have to be paying money to me to do it. Maybe I'll work something out because I really do enjoy them. I have a lot of fun with them. They make me feel good when I successfully get through a stream like that. But it's just not viable. It's not viable on YouTube. YouTube is too... It's too... the system is just too broken to appreciate the public domain. You know what's fucked up is that it's easier to just steal other people's videos. It would be, dude, I could be fucking sitting here. I could just turn on a camera and just watch other people's YouTube videos. Watch other people's videos and literally say nothing. literally add nothing. I could not even be on I could just turn on the fucking camera. Not even the camera. Just turn on the stream and just open YouTube with no mic on, with no camera on, and just watch other people's videos. With nothing. Literally just a restream. Showing the video to people, taking views from it. And YouTube wouldn't give a fuck about that. I'm actually stealing other people's work. Their actual copyrightable content. And that would be, I would get through easily. But you try to do something that's owned by that's actually publicly owned, fuck you. Kill on sight. We're not even going to give you a warning. No warning. You get you're this close to getting a strike, mister. Fuck off. It's oh my god. That's what there's like a whole rant. There's a whole rant inside me that's already obvious. I'm sure you've already come to the same conclusion. Everything from like the moment the DMCA was even passed, it's really just copyright exists to protect corporations. Copyright laws exist to protect corporations. They don't exist to protect even smaller creators. They certainly don't exist to protect the public domain, which should be uncopyrightable. And there's no real legal avenue. There's no real legal avenue. If someone was stealing my work, I could potentially go up to a lawsuit, right? Because I own it and I can represent it. But I don't know, like a class action lawsuit? I don't even know. It would just be a class of me. How many people do fucking streams of YouTube of things? There's so much public domain fraud that goes on. It's ridiculous. There's these group of assholes called the Lasso Group who literally just exist to copyright troll. I did a whole thing before I even did the stream. I tested out a bunch of different movies and just grabbed scenes off of YouTube and then put them together and uploaded that as a draft and just saw what got hit. And they will just hit public domain stuff left, right, and center. They don't own it. They don't own it. They just exist to do that. And it's, oh my god. Maybe I should just make a video on that. Maybe I should. Because much has been made about... I mean, I remember a few years ago, there was a big thing with copyright claims on people's YouTube videos where they're clearly like using it in a transformative way, giving commentary, giving a review, and stuff like that. But no one's ever really talked about how much abuse and fraud occurs. And mind you, people will just have videos claimed for stuff that they actually own. It'll be fraudulently claimed by someone else. Like that does happen. But no one's ever really talked about how much fraud goes on in terms of the public domain. Probably because most people don't engage with it that much. Maybe I should make a video. Maybe I should make a video on that. Some of the issues with it. It's not a cause that I imagine will get a lot of movement, but maybe just to bring people's attention to. Look, we got a lot of fucking problems in our government right now. Before passing bills to give more rights to the protection of public domain. I didn't say that just because this was a Mexican film that we're talking about. I want to get to a news story that I found interesting from a few weeks ago that I didn't see anyone else talk about, so it's still fair game. You haven't heard of it. So, if there's one thing that I love, it's reading through investor slideshows. I love reading quarterly earning report slideshows. I discovered this when I was making the Square Enix, the Dissidia video, and I was going through, going through the financial performance of Dissidia NT. Well, a little while ago, a few short weeks ago, one of Square Enix's investors, one of their larger investors, they own about 15% of the company, made a 100 slide presentation criticizing the company's direction and airing out a bunch of issues. And it really puts into perspective. I'm not doing this necessarily to fixate on like the performance of this. Well, I am doing it to fixate on the performance of one company. But I'm doing it. I find this stuff interesting just because it kind of gives us a window into what's going on in the industry. Because this collates a lot of information about different companies and just kind of puts it in one space that I find very interesting. So basically, this is from who is the specific investor? They're called They have a very generic name. They're called like 3D Investment. That's just what they're called. It's 112 slides. Now, granted, a lot of them are very simple. Essentially, they lay out all the problems that they see with the company, the ways that the company is flagging behind, and why they think that is, the issues that they have identified. Now, I should mention that Square Enix is not dying by any means. That is not what this is about. This is, according to an article kind of summing up a lot of this stuff by PC Gamer, courtesy of Harvey Randall. 3D Investment is what's considered an activist investor. That is basically an investor who wants to have, basically they're pushy. They are not very passive. They're literally active. They're activist. They want the company to do better, and they are kind of pushing like for the company to improve. So Square Enix is not dying, but they are certainly stagnating, and they have some negative growth, some shrinkage. And the reasons for this are first, so the first thing that they have is, I actually, somehow, I guess I missed this. Square Enix changed presidents in 2023 to a guy named, his last name is Kiryu. Hang on. Square Enix President Kiryu. That's his one name, I guess. Takashi Kiryu. He took over in June of 2023, and it's really funny because they lay out all the graphs. They lay out all the graphs with his where are all of my things? Okay, great. Sorry, all my stuff minimized for real quick. They lay out all a couple different graphs with like, and here's when he took over, and all the graphs go down, or they at least start going down, and they hit pretty low around his tenure. So the first really interesting slide that I want to talk about comes from page 13, where they talk about how Square Enix, they bring together a lot of different Japanese game developers / publishers. Namely, it's Square, Sega, Konami, Capcom, and Bandai Namco. They compared them the most to Capcom throughout this. Capcom's kind of held as the gold standard competitor for Square Enix by this investment group. I guess the biggest one would obviously be Nintendo, but that's very different. Nintendo has their own hardware. Nintendo's a different case. The closest comparison is something like Capcom or Konami, Sega, Bandai. Square Enix, there's this chart of how many game development assets, quote unquote, they write off. At each one of these companies writes off. Square Enix has a massive spike in 2023. And it's actually kind of interesting at the bottom. They essentially differentiate what each of these companies writes off. So Square records losses on content disposals, and I believe disposals here refers to like releases, things that actually come out. content disposals as write-offs of game development assets. Basically, these are the assets. We have a certain budget for making assets, which it probably constitutes like graphical things and sound and maybe code. I don't exactly know. It's sort of loosely. It's never really defined here, but you can kind of imagine what game development assets means. That's what they write off. Sega writes off canceled projects, so they have like a big spike because I guess something got canceled in like the 22-23 time period. Konami records losses on disposal of fixed assets, which probably has to do with, I don't care that much about Konami. Capcom records business restructuring expenses as impairments of game development assets. So all of these companies essentially write off different things as being game development assets. It's a very loose term that they just kind of like use to be like, here's stuff that we lost on. So for Sega, it's stuff that they canceled. Square Enix is just like, we didn't make money back on this. Capcom is just like shuffling stuff around at the business side. They also have a kind of middling sales ratios, lagging far behind competitors like Capcom and the other. This is very hard to read because they're all different shades of gray. Capcom and Koei. Oh yeah, Koei. Yeah, it's Koei. Okay. Then there's a really interesting chart which tracks revenue growth rate versus operating profit margin. Essentially, revenue growth. How much more money are you pulling in? And then profit margin. So essentially, how much does the game cost to make versus how much do you make back? And they fill this chart with mostly Japanese companies. Electronic Arts is also in there. And, you know, we talk a lot about the contraction of the AAA games business, but it's really a contraction that's only happening in the Western side of the industry. The Japanese games industry seems to be doing pretty well. Capcom is way up on the top right of this, which means that they are bringing in more money year over year, and they are staying within their budget, meaning that their margins are fairly large. They are spending less than it costs to... they're spending much less to produce the game and market it and do all that stuff than what they actually profit off of. Koei Tecmo, also in that side of the top right. Nexon as well. So those are all doing pretty strong. Then you get to sort of like the left side of the graph of not as much profit margin. You've got like Konami, Bandai, EA actually is still, you know, on that side. And these are in like the 15 to 25% margin areas. So not the highest margin. You can kind of look at Bandai is on the lower end of that at like around 15%. And that's probably because Bandai just has so many goddamn projects all the time. I imagine that like Bandai Namco has so much shit going on. I imagine that like it's probably their finances and their margins are probably very complex and lopsided and stuff like that, but they are generally good and they have like a positive revenue growth. Square Enix is the only one of these in the bottom left. They are actually going down in terms of revenue, and their profit margins are much smaller at around like 12%. So that kind of confirms something that's been... It confirms suspicions that you might have had if you've been thinking about or looking at discussions around Square Enix's business strategy and basically how their development has been going for these last couple years. Namely, damn, they spend a lot of money on big piles of shit or things that don't make their money back, just in general, to be less inflammatory. Hey, you know, Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, are these massive budget games with tons of unique assets and expensive animations and cutscenes and huge marketing budgets. And they are like weird half remakes of a game that came out in 1997 that you kind of have to play the original first to even understand because they changed stuff. And then you make like a sequel to that, to an extremely, like, this was a story a while ago that FF7 Rebirth had lower sales than Remake. And that makes sense because it is the sequel to a very story-intensive game. You can imagine that, like, and it's essentially the next part of the story. It's like a very direct sequel. So you can imagine that of the amount of people who bought Remake, yeah, some of them are going to stick around and be willing to pay for the next entry, but some of them might have just bounced off of it. Some of them might not have been that enthused about it. So maybe some of them are just holding off until it goes on sale or something. Combine this with the fact that Square loves spending a ton of money on dog shit projects, like all of their live service attempts that have failed. How much money are they spending on this stuff for very little return? Let's see. The next interesting thing was page 17 was crazy to me because it shows the operating margins by segment. So they have HD games, which are like the big games, you know, SD games, which are like mobile and browser-based games, MMOs, which is just Final Fantasy XIV, and then amusement, which I don't really know what amusement is, and like publishing and licensing and stuff. HD game, the margins that they make on the HD games, so like this is the Final Fantasy VII remakes, the Dragon Quest remakes and stuff like that, the margin is 4%. Ooh, that's really tight, man. That is really tight. You want to know the margin on FF14? 39%. Holy fuck. Like, I knew, it's been public knowledge that 14 is basically keeping the company afloat and has been for years. I didn't realize it was that much. It was a nearly 40% profit margin on that game. Absolutely crazy. They make back so much more money than they spend than they invest into it. That's wild. The SD games, the mobile and browser stuff, is at like 11%, which is like better. It's better, I guess. Let's see. What was the next thing in my notes? A lot of the rest of this is basically pointing out the problems with how they got there and identifying what the issue is. There's a really funny slide where they talk about the communication between Square Enix and their shareholders and their investors. Apparently Square's like buzzword that they've been telling investors is reboot. Square Enix reboots and awakens. And there's like multiple slides that are just dedicated to this investment group saying, what the fuck does that mean? You guys don't have financial targets for 2027. What does reboots mean? What? And then there's just like a ton of like kind of nitty gritty stuff that I wasn't as interested in. That's mainly down to you guys don't have a plan for this. The big problem is you don't have a plan. What's the plan for all of these problems that you're facing? There's one slide I found was very funny. They are directly comparing the way that Square reports their earnings versus how Capcom does it. So Capcom, they're like, look at these great breakdowns that they give to their investors of like all these different ways that their business is working. Hey, Square, why don't you tell us, why don't you give us the total company-wide unit sales by new titles? Why don't you tell us how your new titles and properties are doing? Isn't that weird? You just tell us by region and by like platform. Look at all this extra information Capcom gives. That's weird. There's another one about how, let's see, what slide is that on? 52. The cumulative unit sales on their flagship properties are way down. This is kind of a shocking graph at first. It's not as bad when you kind of understand it, but it's basically comparing sales of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games versus just Monster Hunter games between releases. So Final Fantasy 16 has not sold as well as Final Fantasy 15. Dragon Quest 3 Remake has not sold as well as Dragon Quest 11. Now, of course, that's because Final Fantasy 15 has been out for almost 10 years longer than Final Fantasy 16. Same with the Dragon Quest 3 Remake. But they do point to, like, Monster Hunter X in 2015 made this much money. Monster Hunter World in 2018 made, what is that, 8 times more? Like, okay, yeah. Monster Hunter Rise and Monster Hunter Wilds is already at, like, half of the sales of the previous game. What's up with that? Why isn't Final Fantasy 16 had similar like sales? There's also a really funny slide where they cite Metacritic reviews for these low performing games, the remake and 16, DQ3 remake and FF16. And they just recently released core titles have been harshly criticized. On the DQ3 remake, horrible, one of the absolute worst remakes ever. I just can't believe that this god-awful mess would be released in 2024. It's a very boring, irritating game. And then for 16, the turn-based and active time battle systems that fans love have been replaced. Why Square Enix don't listen to fans remains the eternal question. All in all, FF16 is heartbreaking for Final Fantasy fans. That's in, like, big red letters. That's very funny that they just had a guy scroll through bad Metacritic reviews. 16 didn't even review that poorly. I don't think so. What's 16 on Metacritic? There's no way that it was like that. But 87 on Metacritic, user score 8.4. So this feels like a real inflation. This feels a little dramatic. I think they're just trying to, like, and you're making dog shit. But then you get the next slide, which is about new IPs. Namely, bad Metacritic reviews of Forspoken, Babylon's Fall, and Marvel's Avengers. Dude, fucking... There is this, like, slideshow that they put together for, like, that these investors put together to show the company, where they cite a Metacritic review shit-talking Forspoken for having cringe dialogue directly. It's not even spelled right. Dialogue isn't even spelled right. The guy who can't write is criticizing the dialogue. Babylon's... Yeah, I mean, this is fair. All of their attempts at launching new franchises have basically failed. Like, there is truth in this. It's a little funny to cite Metacritic reviews, but there's truth in this. The recent, like, they consider Square's flagship things to be Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. Dragon Quest is not that well known outside of Japan, which they also mentioned later. And all of their attempts to launch new things have failed horribly. Yeah, they talk about, let's see, 63. They talk about overseas versus domestic sales. Square has a hard time selling outside of Japan. Apparently, I didn't even realize that the FF14 mobile came out in 2025. It came out in China. This was apparently the only fruits of a 7-year collaboration with Tencent. It took them 7 years, and that's the only thing. Ever Crisis basically totally bombed outside of Japan. 70% of sales came from the Japanese market. FF7 Ever Crisis, you might remember as being the game that sent Yuji Naka to prison the second time. And basically they identify a similar thing when comparing a similar thing that many other people have been theorizing. Here they compare them directly to Capcom. And essentially it's a lot of slides to reiterate the same point in different ways across different sectors of the business. Basically, Square Enix spends way more than they can make back. They cannot control their budget, and they can't use their budget as effectively as other companies like Capcom. They spend way too much on development. They spend way too much on marketing for less return. They have a lot of staff, and all these things just increase costs. So it's funny to compare them to Capcom, because when I think about it, Capcom has been very stubborn with insisting that all of their games run on the RE engine, on basically proprietary software that they design in-house and that they train all of their programmers and designers and all their people on, right? And this has actually paid off for them. A lot of companies around the 2000s kind of tried to stick to their guns and do their own thing, and it did not work out for them. Capcom basically managed to scrape through and land on the actual... They tried it with MT Framework to varying success, but I think really with the RE engine, they have really landed on like the everything engine, where they can do all sorts of different, maybe not like all sorts of different art styles and stuff, but they really did build it to support most of their different types of titles, and it works pretty well. And that naturally reduces costs. They have their own software that they know how to work with, and everybody's on the same page. Square, I don't know what exactly they use internally. I don't think they have their own... I don't think that they have their own engine or anything as developed out as the RE engine. But yeah, they cannot get their budgets under control. They can't stop spending on huge projects that cannot make the money back. And they are really not able to like actually come up with new properties that are compelling to people. They are bad taste. They have bad taste, essentially. They're bad at budgeting, and they have bad taste. So a lot of the rest of the slide presentation is about like, we want better communication. We want you to have an actual plan that isn't just like meaningless. Don't just say reboots. And I think that it's kind of an interesting peek into, because there's really not as much of an excuse. Like, okay, everyone's like dying and getting laid off in the Western games industry. I get that people are going through tough times. A lot of company pocketbooks don't look great right now. But Japan's doing really well, like, is kind of evidenced by that. Like, you don't hear big layoffs coming out of Japan all the time like you do with all the Western studios and publishers. So there's really not much of like an environmental excuse for why they've just failed, except they're kind of incompetent. Square Enix are like, their leadership is terminally stupid and cannot pick good projects. They basically float on by because Final Fantasy XIV sustains them through everything. And then they dump money on dog shit projects and things that are misguided. And then they all fail. And like, they've been doing this for the better part of 10 years now. And yeah, eventually it starts catching up to you. So they're not in like dire straits or anything. it's just like a really interesting picture of a company that is totally struggling and does not know what the fuck to do. They're in a real like I feel like Square's in a real lost period right now. All they've really got is Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. And like 16, I heard kind of mixed things about. Maybe I'll play it someday. The remakes, the 7 remakes, have been also a little controversial, and they come out very infrequently. They're super costly. They're really story-based and have a natural fall-off, as they go along in terms of sales. And no one outside of Japan really cares about Dragon Quest that much, and they can't really get people to care. I don't know. They just have a hard time getting people to care about Dragon Quest as nearly as much as Final Fantasy. And I don't know, it's weird. Square has so much interesting stuff under its belt. Like, let me just look at like Square Enix games. Or Square Enix properties. There's so much shit. Bushido Blade, the Chrono series, Drakengard, Final Fantasy Front Mission, Gex, Groove Coaster. What the fuck is Jesus? What is that? There's a game called Jesus? Okay. It's a visual novel? Just Cuz. I forgot they own Just Cuz. Kingdom Hearts, Kane and Lynch. Lufia, the Mana series, Million Arthur, Nier, Octopath Traveler, Pandemonium, Parasite Eve, Pocky and Rocky. They own Kix, really? Or Quicks, whatever. Saga. Space Invaders. They own Space? What? Really? Some of these are like subsidiaries. Okay. Valkyrie Profile, The World Ends With You, Star Ocean, the Ustone, Deus Ex, Hitman. Yeah, all the stuff that got sold off. They have like a pretty large back catalog of stuff. And they just like never use it that often. They do a couple of remakes. There's what just came out recently. I forgot they own Life is Strange. What a random. Okay. Wasn't there that Saga? Did they put out a Saga game recently? Or like a remaster? There was like a Star Ocean remake? I don't remember. Yeah, like they don't use their actual library that well. And they're really bad at developing new stuff. They're just really bad at it. So I found that pretty interesting. I don't think they're going to go out of business anytime soon, but maybe if 14 completely dies. Well, that's the other thing, is it's a little precarious to hinge so much of your business on the fact that Final Fantasy XIV, one game, is going to keep bringing in the money all the time. Because sometimes, 14 had a nearly 10-year-long uninterrupted streak of straight home runs. It was very consistently profitable. As we saw, the margins on it are crazy. And then got really big during COVID when WoW started to take a big downturn. And then, hey, you release an expansion, Dawntrail, that's like a little more polarizing. Uh-oh. Some people start dropping their subs, which is something that the producer, Yoshi P, has told people they're well within their right to do. He's such a cool guy. He's like, don't worry, if you don't want to play if you don't think the game is worth the money, just unsubscribe. Just, if you don't think we don't want to keep you on a treadmill and make you feel like you're compelled to play the game. Because honestly, and I think he's right, that builds almost a sense of resentment for the game. That's not the relationship he wants to have with players. So his whole message is, if you're unsatisfied with the content, feel free to unsubscribe. We hope that we can make something that is worth your money in the future. We hope to win you back. Which I think is a very respectable position. And guess what? Some people did. Not everyone loved that new expansion. It happens. MMOs have their ups and downs. One of the reasons that they did so well is, again, because World of Warcraft was in like this. World of Warcraft kind of had this up and down cycle where they'd release a good expansion and then a bad expansion and then a good one again. And, it was kind of a roller coaster of quality for the player base. So then they did this really innovative thing where they put out a bad expansion and then followed it up with the worst one they've ever made, called Shadowlands. And it was, I remember, like, that reached into my bubble, and that was, dude, WoW players were just miserable. It seemed like a miserable time to be a World of Warcraft player. And a lot of people who are in this fucked up, like addictive relationship with the game just actually quit. It like broke the habit for people. And a lot of them went to 14. Yeah, sometimes, again, it's not really a sustainable model to be like, we're going to rely on this one thing to get us through. Because maybe sometimes, like, let's say that 14, the next expansion, is actually really bad. Let's just say that. What are we going to do now? Like, I think then they'd start to be in a little bit of trouble. And then, of course, they refuse to invest back into the game in any substantial way. in any substantial way. 14 recently had a thing where they were like, so a recent update that they made allowed you to transmog across gear across classes. If you don't know, transmog, the 14 term for it is glamour. Transmog comes from World of Warcraft. It's basically how you can have your equipment that affects your stats, and then you can have a separate layer of equipment that is actually visual that shows up on your character. In WoW, they called it transmogrifying. 14 calls it glamour. My favorite term for it was actually in Terraria, where they called it vanity. The vanity equipment slots. I thought that was probably the best term for it. But for the longest time, you were restricted to only things that could be worn by your class. And now you can wear things across classes, which means that there's all sorts of wacky. You can make a paladin who looks like a bard, but has a sword and shield, and like that's fun. I think weapons are probably the only exception. It's just fun things. It opens up, the fashion aspect to it. I had a ton of fun playing 14, just coming up with like cool outfits for my character in the different jobs that I played as. And apparently that's a feature that they've wanted to add for like 5-6 years. And I guess they just finally had the time and the money to get around to it. Like, okay, well, this is what we're working on for this thing, for this update. That could have been in the game years ago. Probably. Anyway, let's talk about some games. Let's talk about some hand stuff. So, in order to finally complete my run through of, I guess, the main classic series of Mega Man games, I was at first content with just playing all the numbered ones, but I figured, I've never actually played Mega Man in base. I've heard a lot about it. Why not? Let me try it out. So, playing Mega Man in base is an interesting experience. And in fact, it's actually going to cause me to shit talk the Legacy Collection 2 even more. I spent like 15 minutes last time, but I have more complaints with it. So, Mega Man in base was essentially developed as a basically like a gimme, or not a gimme, but like a little parting gift for Super Nintendo kids. It's a very, very late Super Nintendo game. It came out in 1998. That is well after the N64 came out. And it only really exists because for the longest time, Mega Man was a Nintendo franchise, like Nintendo console. If you owned an NES or a Super Nintendo, you were pretty confident that you were going to get Mega Man games. You might buy the console just for Mega Man because it was so reliable. Mega Man's 1 through 7, the 7 games, all came out on the NES. On NES console. 7 was Super Nintendo. Mega Man X 1 through 3 all came out on the Super Nintendo. That's four Mega Man games total on the SNES at that point. And then they just jumped right into PlayStation. Starting from X4, it was a PlayStation. The X series became a PlayStation 1, and Mega Man 8 came out on the PS1 as well. And so I think they were worried about people feeling a little bit betrayed, because maybe you'd say that there's a fair fear that some people might have bought an N64 expecting a classic Mega Man game or an X game on it, and then all they got was Legends, which is not a shade to Legends, but might not be what you were expecting. So they felt bad for that they were abandoning the PlayStation, so they were abandoning the Nintendo kids. So they made Mega Man and Bass as one last send-off to the Nintendo scene, and also for some reason decided it should be really hard. So Mega Man and Bass fits in with Mega Man 8 in that kind of black sheep category, but not nearly as well known, because the game did not come out outside of Japan. Not in 1998, not on the Super Nintendo. I mean, it's fair. It's a super late SNES game. And there are actually examples of really late games coming out on Nintendo platforms, even when they have new hardware out. For instance, like Mega Man 6, which was published by Nintendo. Actually, this was I think this was in there's a video by Jay's Reviews, who I like. I think this is in his video. He kind of pointed something out, which I guess I always was aware of all the details. I just never put them together. But Mega Man 6 was actually published by Nintendo well after 3 years after the Super Nintendo came out. And that was because Nintendo of Japan mainly, or Nintendo actually liked having games for people who were still on the old hardware. But by 1998, that wasn't really as common, and there wasn't much of a reason for Capcom to spend the money localizing and porting the game to the Super Nintendo, and it's like, why? So the game kind of was just stuck in Japanese until 2003, only a few years later, when it released on the Game Boy Advance. Now, the GBA is a great handheld. It's got a very underrated library, in my opinion. Part of that is just because it's like a little mini Super Nintendo. There were so many SNES ports to the GBA that are honestly really good. Mega Man and Bass is not one of them. Mega Man and Bass is a difficult game. It throws a lot of stuff at you. And it's workable when you're playing at a Super Nintendo aspect ratio. And when you crunch that down onto a GBA screen, the game, I've seen footage of it, is probably like unplayable. It seems unplayable. Just stuff flying in from all over, things that were designed. There are things the game is designed around, like, the player can see these things because they're on screen that are not on screen in the GBA port. Now, it is in English, so there is an English script. It also has a slightly reworked OST. I actually prefer some of the GBA tracks to some of the SNES tracks. It kind of goes back and forth depending on them. Great soundtrack for the most part. This game's got a good one. I guess I'll talk about that in a second. What was I talking about? So most people outside of Japan, I can't even imagine it sold that well in Japan, but most people, because it's on such an old console, but most people who played it outside of Japan probably played it on the GBA port. And yeah, I can see how that would be a bad experience, because the game is pretty difficult before you introduce that. And then also it just has like genuine straight up bullshit. Fuck you. There's like 3 levels I fucking hate in this game. So, now having played it on SNES, what do I think of it? Is it actually a bad game? No, not at all, actually. It's not the best one. It's not the best game in the series by any means, I'd say. Not in my opinion. But it's honestly pretty good. I think it's a pretty good Mega Man game. Definitely harder than average. Probably not as hard as Mega Man 9 in general. If you've played 9 and beaten 9, I think Mega Man and Bass could be a decent challenge. I also have to bring with the caveat that I was playing as Bass. Because why not? Because 1, I love Bass, and 2, it's like the only game where he's playable. Well, he's playable in 10 as well. But I just figured, like, okay, he's a title character. Might as well play him. He's so cool. And Bass has been noted as being on the slightly easier end. To be honest, I kind of wish that this had just been a Bass game in general. That this had just starred Bass. Because I think that would have been... probably would have worked out better overall. I'll get to that in a second. So I want to talk about how I actually played this and the best way to play it. It's annoying as fuck. So you need to go to a forum. Okay, so the easiest way to... Okay, so I want to play Mega Man and Bass in the best way possible. And I'm an English speaker. I don't speak Japanese. And I'd kind of like to at least read what's going on and read the menus and stuff. There is an English fan-made patch for the Super Nintendo ROM. You can patch it yourself, but it's more complicated than usual because of some goddamn reason. I don't know why. I've done ROM hacking before, and it's pretty easy. You just click on the patch, and you click on the game in a very lightweight software. Click, click, done. Open the game. Patch is applied. Mega Man and Bass, for some reason, requires you to, like, edit, like, headers and stuff like that, and honestly, I just wasn't in the mood. So I'm like, okay, can I get a download of the game that has been pre-patched? Yes, it's hard. It's arcane. Oh, you could say that, the misery. I had to go to this... Okay, so I had to find a Reddit comment pointing me to the place to... Okay, fuck, what was it? Okay, what was the process I actually went through? I found it on a ROM's website, but that website doesn't have files anymore because they shift around what website the files are actually hosted on because of copyright stuff, obviously. So I had to go to this forum, make register an account, and then go to a hidden URL that is not actually linked anywhere. You have to know what to type in. I only found this from a Reddit comment. And then I could download the game, and hey, it worked fine, and it was in English. Which is like... It was just like a little more headache than I felt like dealing with, but it was easier, I guess. And I think that this is a massive missed opportunity for the Legacy Collection too. I think that it would have been a genuine value add to have Mega Man and Bass, the Super Nintendo version, and fuck it, throw in the GBA version with an English translation in the Legacy Collection too. I think it would have exposed a lot more people to it. And honestly, I think that much like with some of the other Mega Man games, would have probably turned some public opinion around on it. This MM&B is a generally kind of maligned one. A lot of people just write it off as being... I thought that it was bad. It had a bad reputation for years. I just kind of assumed that it was true. What I've learned is to never trust public opinion. If you haven't like played the game or at least like seen a lot of it with your own eyes. So huge missed opportunity. Yeah. Big bummer again. Gripes with the Legacy Collections. So okay, let's talk about the game. So Mega Man and Bass is sort of like Mega Man 8.5 in terms of story and also like assets and stuff. It reuses tons and tons. I'm sure there's some original stuff, but like sometimes it feels like 80% of the game's assets are just crunched down Mega Man 8 sprites. And to be honest, they look pretty good. It's still a really nice looking game. It's Mega Man's sprite from 8. The one from 7 is not reused. Bass looks really good. I feel like he's based off of X's sprites because he has some similar kind of abilities, namely the dash. So I played as base. I did not play as Mega Man. The big difference is that Mega Man's kind of the typical Mega Man moveset: jump, charge, slide, all that. Base has a bunch of unique stuff going on. He can shoot in like 8 directions, just about, or 7 directions. He can't shoot straight down. He can shoot in 7 directions. You hold down the button and he rapid fires, and then you're locked in place, and then you can input directional controls to change where you're shooting. He can dash like Mega Man X, and he can double jump. And the double jump is one of the most busted things about Base. First of all, it feels really good to use. It's a lot of fun to double jump in a Mega Man game. And also, this game has the classic Mega Man damage recoil thing, where you kind of back when you get hit. If you haven't expended your second jump in the air when you get hit, Base can double jump out of his like hit stun, which means that platforming over precarious pits and stuff like that is a lot more manageable in places where Mega Man would just fall to his death. So that's cool. So what I mean by the game, I wish that it had maybe focused. I wish it had focused on one character or the other and not tried to use both of them, because there are some specific things that the differences in the way that each character plays and their different abilities, essentially, means that the game can't be designed around both of them at the same time. So here's what I mean. There's a moment in one of my least favorite stages in the game, Burner Man, where you go up this ladder and you go up on the right side, and essentially the room that you climb up into, the layout is such. Most of the room, like, you climb like all the way up near the top, and there's kind of this like or towards like the middle of the screen in terms of vertical, the middle height. And there's like, essentially you come to this like overlook, and down below is this gorilla guy who's throwing rocks. He's throwing boulders at the ground at an angle. He's just throwing them downwards. Now, as Base, this enemy is really hard to hit. He's placed very awkwardly, and you have to stand in a really particular place to even kind of hit him with your buster. And it's on the next screen, once you get past him, there's the same enemy that just chucks things at a diagonal angle. But he's on like the top of essentially like a set of steps. It's a very classic Mega Man layout. An enemy that attacks diagonally, standing at the top of steps. And as Base, that one is just a piece of cake. You just aim upwards and just obliterate him. Well, the reason for that is because Mega Man can shoot through walls. So on that first screen, you can just climb up. The guy's to your left. You can just shoot him through the wall as you're climbing up. You have plenty of time to see what the pattern looks like. He has a lot of health, so one charge shot isn't going to take him out. You'll probably see what he does. And then on the next stage, or screen, it's much more difficult, because you have to climb up these stairs and hit him from like this odd angle. Like, you have to jump up to try to hit him while dodging his thing. It's more challenging that way. Completely inverted versus Base. And so you end up in a couple of and there's several moments like this throughout the game where that kind of classic, what I call 4-panel design, or the 4-part design, the Kisho Tenketsu, is sort of flipped and gets fucked up because the designers are factoring one character over the other, when they differ in pretty important ways, like how they can basically interact with enemies. So there's just a lot of like wonky stuff like that. Again, bit of a wonk factor. What is what I'll call it. And there is other stuff where they are clearly designed around 2 characters, and very intentionally so, where like Mega Man, an area that's only accessible to Mega Man because you've got to slide into it. or a place that you have to double jump into. Bass as a character, I should mention, is... I think a lot of people might be tempted to kind of play him like Mega Man X, and you really can't. Mega Man X is a game that is designed around X's moveset. It's designed with the dash and the wall slide and wall jumping all in mind. And Bass, importantly, does not have the wall slide or jump, and the game is not designed in the same way that the X games are designed. In like Mega Man X, the levels tend to be a little bit larger, a little bit more open. There's more surface area because you can just navigate and climb all over the place with dash jumping and wall hopping and stuff like that. But these levels have to be designed around Mega Man, who can only slide. So Bass's dash isn't really meant for... It's meant for mobility, but it's really like to get out of the way. If you're just... In Mega Man X, you can kind of dash willy-nilly, because the enemies are all designed around, okay, the player's probably going to be dashing all the time. In Mega Man and Bass, if you try to dash willy-nilly as Bass, you're going to get hit all the time. So you can't just play it like that. You have to slow down a little bit and mainly use the dash for repositioning and dodging stuff. There is a slight element of low profiling, which is an aspect of the dashes in Mega Man X and stuff. There's a little bit of that, but the game isn't designed a ton around it. Low profiling stuff tends to be like a lot of stuff that like only Mega Man can do, because they want going low to be a Mega Man thing. Bass is more about you'll rather be double jumping over it than dashing under stuff, compared to like, I don't know, in like the Mega Man Zero games, dashing like I think literally like halves your height or something like that. So it functions almost like a slide. So a few things to keep in mind. These are not bad things. It's just the way that the game is designed and kind of has to be designed. I do really like playing as Bass. I think he's really fun, and I'm glad that he's fun in this game. As for the levels, they are generally just a little tougher. Groundman is fairly... This game, okay, I gotta say, this game is one of my favorite rosters of Robot Masters. There's a kind of like Cold Man's a little boring. Also, his name's Cold Man. It also reuses Tengu Man and Astro Man from Mega Man 8, which is a little lame. Again, it feels like kind of a time crunch scenario. But if you're going to reuse two robots from 8, I like Tengu Man a lot. I think Astro Man he's distinct. He's not a bad pick. Ground Man is a really cool, like, transforming drill guy. Pirate Man is an awesome design. Magic Man, I think, is a great, really flavorful design. Dynamo Man is fine. He's just kind of electric guy. He's whatever. Burner Man, I hate that goddamn stage, but really cool design. He's just a bunch of like propane tanks. I think the coolest part about him is the fact that his actual, what would you call it? Like half of his finger? Or like the last joint of his finger, something like that. He basically only has like half of his fingers physically, because they are burners. So like his fingertip, like that whole part of his finger, is just a flame. It's just like a burner flame. Such a cool idea for a fire-themed Robot Master. Also think it's hilarious that he is designed specifically to hurt the environment and loves global warming. just like cartoonishly evil oil executive Robot Master. He's trying to burn down the rainforest in his stage. Yeah, I think there's some really great, cool looking designs in this one. Definitely a lot of really underrated ones. The music is also awesome. I mentioned it before. There's a little difference between the GBA and the SNES soundtracks. I generally prefer the SNES ones. Like, Groundman stage is so, I've had it in my head like all day. Bum 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 bum. It's super weird. It caught my attention the first time I heard it because the phrase ends with this really odd, like, discordant note. It doesn't resolve properly, and at first it sounded kind of bad, like it's a little too flat. But then it really grew on me as this weird kind of like funky, kind of jazzy choice. The whole piece, it takes a level of skill to put such strong, such an obvious, like discordant note in a song. It's really easy to mess it up, but like I think it's super cool and it makes the game really catchy. Who's the composer on this? Let's see, who's the composer? Sound design. Okay, what does that mean? Naoshi Mizuta, Akari Kaida, and someone named Kiri-Kiri-chan, who does not have a link because this is Capcom. Okay, it looks like they were maybe... Yeah, they were both composers. They don't say who exactly composed which games or which tracks, but yeah, Akari Kaida also worked on Earth Defense Force, Tekken 8. Oh. Phantasy Star Online 2. Smash 4. A couple other things. What did Naoshi Mizuta work on? Theater Rhythm, Bravely Default, FF15, 13-2. A lot of Final Fantasy actually. Theater Rhythm, yeah. That's cool. Yeah, really cool soundtrack. I also really like Pirate Man's theme on the GBA version. It's just got this like really intense... It builds this really intense kind of melancholic thing, and then it drops out again to the start of the loop. But it's like this really like kind of crunchy guitar sound, like steady guitar. That's super cool. It makes it feel like it's keeping the intensity up while also dropping the instruments out. It's super neat. The SNES version is not quite as cool to me because that instead of that like kind of crunchy guitar, it's a more subtle sound, and so it doesn't hit as hard when you go back to it. But there's a really nice intensity to it. Just some really good music in this game. The special weapons are generally pretty fun. I'm going to talk about the level design on last because I've got a lot of ranting to do. The special weapons are generally pretty cool. Let me just look at them. So Coldman's got a neat one. You make an ice wall and then you can push it forward. You can find gaps. You can find like holes in the floor. Oh, actually, let me complain about level design real quick. Again, just like weird, not like what design. There's this, okay, in one of the, I think it's one of the fortress stages, I think there's a hazard. Okay, so basically they introduce this thing where it's like there's gaps in the floor, but they are covered by a foreground object, by like a foreground panel that's that's attached to the platform. Sounds like a weird, to the floor essentially. There's gaps in the floor, but it's obscured where exactly they are, and you're introduced to this in a normal way, you know, just like, oh, fall down to safety, go back up. Okay, I guess there's a gap there. Then they start introducing spikes and stuff like that and enemies. There's this enemy that basically the way it works is that it's two little nodes and they are arranged vertically and they just make like an electricity barrier between them. Okay, fine. You destroy one, the one that remains creates like creates a new copy. They kind of like bud. And then it floats down to the bottom. And then when it gets back to its set position, they make the electricity barrier again. Okay, not the most complex enemy design. But for some reason, the first time it's given to you, it's in front. It is being partially obscured by one of these foreground elements. one of these foreground panels that's meant to obscure where the gap in the floor is. And so I killed the one that was visible on top and then just walked into the one on the bottom because it's literally invisible. You cannot see it. Like I had to was like, what the fuck? What? I didn't understand how it even worked until I got to the next one where it is completely visible. Just why was it designed like that? Why'd you do that? I'm not opposed to combining those two things, but why did you obscure the information like that? I didn't even understand after I got hit. Anyway, right, Cold Man's weapon's cool. Astroman, they had to come up with like new weapons for Astroman and Tengu Man. For Astroman, instead of a big screen clear weapon, they came up with this like copy shot where you just make a clone that shoots. It's fine. Tengu Man has a cool one. The Tengu Blade is a really unique weapon. It has a melee component and then it's kind of spins out. You do like a slash and then it spins out into a projectile that bounces around. It's pretty cool. It also automatically is used every time you dash/slide. I like that one. That's neat. Ground Man it's just Drill Man's weapon. What a difference between character designs. Like, you want to look at the evolution of a series art style. Compare Ground Man to Drill Man from Mega Man 4. They are essentially the same robot. The same design. A robot who is made of a bunch of drills stapled together. Drill Man is just he's just like a torso and legs, and his arms are drills, and his head is a drill. And Ground Man is this just crazy, he's got like 20 drills on him, and these like big shoulder drills, and he like transforms into like a drill machine, and like it's so much more elaborate. I think he's cool. But just like the sheer difference. And yeah, it's just like a drill that splits into other drills. Pirate Man's weapon is like a pretty decent mine that you can kind of direct. It's fine. It's like a slightly slower version of Grenade Man's weapon. Magic Man's weapon is cool. It's just like a card that has a short range and boomerangs back to you. Dynamo Man. What does Dynamo Man do again? Dude, I forget what Dynamo Man's weapon is. Why am I... What the hell does he do? It's, What the... Hang on, what's it called? Lightning Bolt. Oh, it's the screen clear. He gets the screen clear. That's what it is. I didn't actually have to use it that much. Burner Man, also, he's got a flamethrower, which is just a weapon from Mega Man X, but hey, it's cool to do it in this game. Yeah, so generally, like, pretty solid roster of weapons. I used, like, the Magic Man, Drill Man. Drill Man doesn't do that much damage, so I didn't use it super often. But yeah, Magic Man, Drill Man, Pirate Man, the Tengu Blade. Yeah, I used them fairly often. The Burner Man's weapon is also pretty good. Moving on to stages, they are, like I said, generally tougher. They are just, it's more that the stages, they don't like really fuck with you too much. They just throw a lot at you, and there's a lot of just spikes and death. Very punishing. I think of like Ground Man stage as a good example of this. It's one of the first stages you unlock. This game does a weird, you know how like around this time they were kind of doing like start with 4 Robot Masters and then move on to the next 4. They were kind of doing that in this game, but you start with 3 and then each one unlocks. Okay, you start with 3 Robot Masters and then you beat 1 and then it unlocks 2 more, and you beat another one of the first group and it unlocks 2 more, and then you beat the middle one and it will only unlock 1. It's kind of weird, and it doesn't really affect that much. There's not a lot of like, oh, well, you'll want to take this route. Like there is an obviously perfect route that I found, because this game also doesn't really have any collectibles like previous games in terms of items, the same way that there were like, you know, the rush letters or the energy balancer or something like that. all of that stuff is bought from the shop using bolts that you pick up through regular gameplay. And I was rarely in short supply of bolts. I never really had a problem buying the things that I needed. And so there's a pretty obvious route through this game just based on the weakness order that is perfect. That being said, Groundman's stage kind of throws it's okay, here's this quicksand, and then there are these multiple segments where there's really tight timing of this high health centipede robot that crawls along the walls, and you gotta you can kill it, but not that easily. And if you take the time to actually kill it, there's another one that's gonna spawn in. So you basically just have to wait until it passes and then just book it to the end of the screen. And the timing again is pretty tight. There's not a lot of leeway that you're given. Then there's this whole room where you have to get through it. There's a locked door, and there's all of these totem statues, and you have to destroy it. You have to destroy these statues to get through because they're blocking your progress. But every time you destroy one, it makes a wheel of insta-kill spikes get closer to the point where it will be unavoidable. And one of them, there's a red statue that will unlock the door. So you have to look at the room and figure out how many of the statues you can destroy to get to the red one to get to the next room. And it just kind of throws stuff like this at you pretty quickly and expects you to adapt. It also has a mini boss that has way too much health. What are some other difficult? Okay, I remember Astroman stage just has, it's not even that hard. It just has a really slow, annoying disappearing block section where you got to do this. It's this big vertical shaft, and you got to do disappearing block platforming all the way up. And the double jump makes it a little easier, but it just takes so long. And when you fall, and it just took me a really long time. Astroman having kind of boring stages with gimmicks that drag them out. 2 for 2, crazy. Tengu Man stage sort of infamously is an auto-scroller that is a little dumb. I'm not a huge fan of the auto-scrolling gimmick. There is a rather, again, infamous section where you have to platform across balloons, but one of the they pop basically as soon as you land on them, so you got to jump from one to the next, and they're all in a row, but one of them is a little spaced out, and you got to jump further, and so you got to jump further than you were expecting to, and you will die and fall in the pit and die. I like Magic Man stage. I generally like Dynamo Man stage. It was pretty a little too much in the spike zone for me. Pirate Man stage has a lot of spikes, but they're not kill spikes. They're just damaging. That one was fine. That one's kind of cool. His fight's also pretty good. The fights in general, I think, in this game are mostly good. They're mostly good. Cold Man stage is actually really good. It's an ice stage that doesn't rely on ice physics. Crazy, I know. I don't even think there's any ice physics in there. The actual gimmick is around these ice platforms that break after you walk over them and spend too long on them. It goes over much better than Freeze Man. No, not Freeze Man. What's his name? Frost Man from Mega Man 8. I always confuse the ice guys. But though Freeze Man does have a bunch of annoying ice physics in his stage. And the one I got a real bone to pick with, Burner Man. Fuck that stage. Oh my god. That one is notably harder than the other ones. It is throwing a lot at you, and it is very, very punishing. Walk into an area where there are cannons that are shooting arced projectiles at you that will change based off of where you are standing, so you have to keep moving. You have to destroy them so that you can, because they are on elevated segments of terrain that you need to jump up, and you have to jump up them because there is a giant telly that flies through and will drop a bomb that will cause insta-kill fire to rise up from the bottom of the screen. This happens 3 times. So just go, 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 go. That whole level is just, and maybe it's easier on Mega Man. I don't know. But that whole level is just throwing so much shit at you. It was really, and like back to back to back. There's this weird, there's this section with these like gorilla guys who, it's the same guys who like throw stuff at you. This is the same section. This is the same guy that I was talking about. And like the last time you run into that guy, it is really annoying to take him out as base. Really easy as Mega Man, because you can just shoot through walls, but as base, you got to do this really, because base doesn't do a lot of damage. So you have to do this really obnoxious, just like hop and shoot and hop and shoot and hop and shoot. It sucks. There's this weird room where there are spears shooting out of the background, like out of the wall behind you, out of the background wall. But because of the game's foreshortening and perspective, it is difficult to assess where the actual hitbox of the spears is, and the timing is really tight. I just found that annoying. Just the level is just one thing after another. It's just one goddamn thing after another. And then Burner Man's fight was really obnoxious to me. So he's weak to Cold Man's weapon, the ice wall. There is a cool idea here. Again, this is around the time they were trying to make the weapons a little more interactive and not just like shoot, 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 stun, 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 stun. So Burner Man's fight takes place on this platform that is like 2 or 3 screens wide. And on the edges is a pit of spikes. You are not really in danger of falling into them, but the idea is that you create the little ice wall from Cold Man's weapon and then push it into Burner Man, and then he will get pushed into he will take damage from it, but then he'll get pushed into the spikes and take extra damage. And that's really where most of the damage comes from in the fight. Unfortunately, this game does this really cool thing where if something is off screen, it's like, I never saw that. Who did? I didn't see anything. And this becomes a problem at a later point. So you have to make sure that after you hit Burner Man, you just dash, 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 dash to make sure that he's on screen when he takes damage from the spikes. He has a ton of different attacks, and he goes through all of them in a seemingly random pattern, and you have to wait until the only time that he is actually damageable during 2 of them to hit him. Very annoying fight. Maybe the way that I'm describing it makes it not sound quite as bad, but very annoying fight. He does this thing where he dashes back and forth, where he's like, it's just like his dashing attack. He's invulnerable during it. And then after, he will sometimes, what he does after the dash is like seemingly random. There's like a couple possible follow-ups that he can do. Sometimes he'll stop in place. Sometimes he will jump up and like right into you because you probably jumped over him to avoid him, and he will jump right into you. Annoying. And in the game, okay, so then there's this weird part where the game does not have, so it doesn't have the traditional classic Mega Man boss rush. Instead, well, one part is that it does have the teleporter room, but it happens before you go to the King Fortress. Oh yeah, the villain of this game is this robot called King, who is rebelling against Wily and has kicked Wily out of his own castle, and that's why Wily is sent base to go beat him up. So you get to the King, you beat all the Robot Masters, and then there is one level that is unlocked before you get to the fortress stages that's just really weird, and I don't know why it's there. It is essentially 8 different puzzles using each of the Robot Master weapons. Now, I was trying to figure out, like, why I liked this so much more in Swordman's stage in Mega Man 8, where there are, like, mandatory usage of boss weapons. I can kind of think of a few reasons. Number one, that was, like, had a really cool theme. This is sort of arbitrary. Essentially what happens is you're just like in the classic teleporter room, like it's a boss rush, except you walk into the teleporters and you'll end up in this room that is it's a challenge room where there is a glowing green like block. Not green. It's a glowing block, and it glows with all 8 of them glow in different colors. And I had to put this together that the colors are meant to correspond to the color of the weapon when you have it equipped. Like the color of the weapon energy meter, which has never been a thing in any other game that's acknowledged it, that even has different colors for the weapon energy meter. Also, like 3 of them are a sort of grayish brown color, which is not very obvious. It's like gray or white, and it's not very obvious when you're seeing this glowing block what it's supposed to be. And you have to hit the block with that weapon to destroy it, and then you'll get a bunch of bolts and you'll have cleared that room. So most of them are fine. Most of them are just relatively intuitive uses of the weapon. The one for Pirate Man is really dumb. It is you know how you can like maneuver the mine? You can press up or down to influence the path of the mine as it flies forward. So his challenge room is that you need to thread the needle through this really tight passageway. You have to go through and then up and then down. And if it touches a wall at any point, it will cling to that wall. And you have to detonate it and then just try again. And also, the opening of this passageway is not at your regular buster height. It is not even like at the peak of your jump. It's at a weird in-between height. So I spent so much weapon energy just trying to get it through the hole in the first place. What happens if you run out of weapon energy? Well, you gotta leave. You gotta leave the room through the teleporter, then go to the teleporter in the top of like the big center room, and it'll take you back to the stage select. And then your weapon energy will not be refilled. You have to then go to another level. I use Astromans and just farm weapon energy for the proximity mine, or for the detonator mine, whatever it's called. You just farm weapon energy, and then you exit, and then you go back. I hope you bought the upgrade that lets you exit a level if you've beaten the boss, and then you go back to the challenge level. And you try again. I ended up save stating here just to like prevent. I would have had to go back like probably 7 times, 8 times. It just burns through so much weapon energy. It's not a particularly cheap weapon. And you have to learn this really specific. First of all, you need to learn the timing of when you have to shoot during the jump. And then there's this really specific timing of how you move it up and down, because it doesn't move very quickly. It's not like a fine control weapon. It moves in like, moving up and down is like a really lazy sine wave, if anything. But eventually I got it. I also can't imagine that the differentiating the blocks by color is that obvious to like, first of all, yeah, again, like the color, so a lot of the colors overlap. Second of all, my God, help you if you're colorblind at all. You have trouble seeing colors. And then you finally unlock the way to King Fortress, which has the first stage of... Okay, so first of all, the King stages are... There's only 3 of them. The first one is fine. Perfectly fine fortress level. The last 2 are the worst, most abominable bullshit in the entire game. Maybe some of the worst levels in the whole series. At least the classic series. So there's only 3 fortress stages, as I just said, where there's usually 4. And honestly, in a lot of the games, there would be an extra 4 stages anyway, like the 4 Cossack stages or the Mr. X stages or something like that. Nope. Only 3. But they make up for it because there are in the last two stages there are 15 boss fights. There are 15 bosses that you have to go through. The King Fortress 2 has 5 bosses in one go. Yeah, there's checkpoints when you get to the first one and I think the third one. But if you game over, you got to do a level leading up to the first one, and then you get. And these are not like good bosses. They're actually some of the most infamous ones in the series. So the first one is the King Tank, which is annoying and again suffers from I didn't see it. So the King Tank is this big tank. It has a bunch of different attacks. It's got like 4 different segments. It's got like a top thing that shoots out missiles that will then like drop. They'll like track wherever Mega Man is standing when it fires. It'll then hit there. It's got like a gun at the front that shoots like a bunch of pellets. It's got tracks that it will use to ram into you. And then it's got like a little back compartment thing that will let out little soldier guys to attack you. And you kill the boss by destroying each of these segments individually. Okay, kind of a neat idea for the boss. And it's not the worst boss in the world. It's just very boring and slow, which will be a running theme. The best way to deal with it, you don't actually have to take out the treads. You can take out the gun, the missiles, and the back part, and that's fine. The best way to do it is with the mine weapon, but you only have so much ammo for it. And also, if the tank just decides to run back or forth, if it goes off screen, if the mine goes off screen, it's wasted. It completely despawns, which is really cool. There's like a level underneath the tank that you can climb down that you'll probably be spending a lot of time underneath. So that you can avoid some of the attacks. It's just very slow. It takes a really long time to kill. It has no health bar. So you just gotta kind of keep at it until it dies. Okay, fine. That wasn't that great, but whatever. Next one is like the most infamous Mega Man boss ever. The King, what is it called? The Jet, whatever? This thing sucks. So this boss fight is fucking crazy. It is a flying tank jet thing. It is an auto-scrolling boss. You are jumping across platforms that are constantly created at seemingly random heights because you're over a pit. The whole bottom is a pit. You're jumping across platforms while this thing is shooting stuff at you. What does it shoot at? Well, it shoots like projectiles. Sure, it shoots like 2 different kinds of projectiles. It shoots a fist that destroys platforms, and if you are not playing as base, like if you're playing as Mega Man, you can just get into no-win situations because the platform you needed is gone now. Base can at least double jump, but sometimes, even as base, you get fucked over. And there's also a gigantic flashbang attack that it does. It releases these items in bubbles. Some of them are like health. It's usually weapon energy, but a lot of them are also flashbangs. If you touch the bubble, the whole screen goes white. I got like a bit of a headache playing this boss because the screen just kept fucking flashing white over and over and over again, sometimes back to back, while you're jumping across platforms that the boss is actively destroying. There's just so much shit happening while it's also doing stuff to you. It has a laser attack that it charges up. You have to destroy the laser. The laser, I think, does the laser come back? I forget if the laser respawns. But it has, the main boss can only be damaged through like the sweet spot at the top of the tank. Like the glass dome at the top. And like, it's a really overbearing fight to begin with. But it's also it doesn't have any health bar, and it has so much fucking health. It just has so much fucking health. It is this overbearing headache-inducing boss fight that is also super slow and sloggy. Oh, it fucking sucks. I'm really glad I played this on an emulator because it took so many attempts. I would have had to fight that fucking stupid tank so many times. I just save stated. I save stated before, I save stated after. Fuck it. I don't care. Boss absolutely sucks. It's up there with Boo Beam Trap for being like one of the worst in the entire series. And there's some bad fucking boss fights. There's like Sigma and X3. That's a bad fight. And then you have 3 back-to-back fights with King. The first one is not okay, well, here's the thing. The first one is not technically a real fight. It's just an endurance match. You just have to dodge projectiles that he throws at you for like, I don't know, a minute or two. But he doesn't have a health bar, right? And the previous 2 bosses didn't have health bars either. So I just assumed it was a real fight, and you can deal damage to him. So all you actually have to do is dodge. Okay, and then there's like 2 fights with him. There's one where he's like actually, he's got a health bar, and then you beat that one, and then he powers up into this gigantic tank form. And okay, you have to fucking like double jump and hit him at like the peak of your jump, and it's so hard to hit him, and he's fucking throwing this shit out. He's charging up the laser. You gotta destroy the laser respawns. The amount of fucking slow, incredibly slow, difficult fights that the game puts you through back to back to back to back to back. Dude, I can't imagine game overing and having to do this again. It just dog shit, just actual trash. Oh, I should mention the end of King Stage 1. It ends with a really shitty boss. It's the Penguin Pod from Mega Man 8, which is also one of the worst bosses in that game. That boss is dumb. In that game, it was this weird thing where you had to kick the Mega Ball up into these weird parts of the ceiling, and it was really hard to aim, and it's really awkward and strange. In this one, it's this bizarre setup where the penguin guy can only be damaged on like the very bottom where his head sticks out. But he's like in the ground, like the pod is in the ground, but he is attached to a like chain with a like a winch for some reason. I don't know who set this up. He's attached to like a winch chain, and you have to stand on this platform that's on the other side of the chain, that's on like the other end of the room, and it will drag your body weight will drag the platform down. It will weigh it down and pull the penguin guy up so he's vulnerable, but the platform is over a pit of insta-kill lava. So you have to balance standing on the platform, but not too long, so that you can hit the penguin guy. And then at the same time, the penguin is also shooting missiles at you, and sometimes out of the lava, there's a little penguin drone that comes out and hits you. And sometimes there's actually this like this random robot monkey that will just be throwing coconuts at you that you have to like shoot to make him go away, but only after he shoots like 2 coconuts. It's just so much, it's just annoying. It's like a really annoying fight, and if you kill the penguin pod while you're standing on the platform, he will get like severed and destroyed, and you will drop there will be nothing to counterbalance the platform, and you will drop directly into the lava and just kill yourself after beating the boss, which is just an actual like stupid dick move. I hate it. And then the final level is the boss rush. But again, it's not a traditional boss rush. It's actually closer to the Mega Man X1 boss rush. Oh, that one was cool. You go through like 4 Sigma stages and you fight a few of the bosses at a time, like during the midpoint and endpoint of each stage. That was cool. Well, no, actually. You fight all 8 bosses in one level, with platforming sections in between that, of course, are just replete with spikes and instant death pits and just a bunch of other shit that can fuck you up. And then you gotta fight Wily, who is, I don't even remember the fight. It's basically like the machine from 8. I was just save stating at this point. I can't tell you how hard it really was. Then there's a Wily capsule that's really slow and annoying. Again, just like not that hard. Just they have so much health. It's hard to deal damage to them. Their weaknesses don't even deal that much more damage. It's just annoying. They all have like sweet spots and they can't be hit anywhere else. It's just like the boss designs just suck towards the end. Difficult, like fair, like annoying and slow. I genuinely spent like 2 hours trying to beat just the last 2 stages. The home stretch of this game turns into a fucking slog. Just a miserable experience. It was god awful. And it's almost enough to just make me not want to replay the game again. Like, if I played the game again, I would just go through the Robot Master stages and not even bother. Maybe the first Wily stage, but I'd like cut it off at the boss. Like, not even bother. It's one of the worst final stretches of a Mega Man game I've ever played. It's really fucking abysmal. I don't even want to imagine doing it on GBA. Dear God. And that's Mega Man in Base. Makes a terrible last impression. Like I said, I think I've said this before. Have I said this on the podcast? The most important parts of your game to get right are the first like 20% and the last 10%. If you open strong, you will leave people with a good first impression that will either, if they happen to drop it, they'll at least have a good impression of it. And if they keep going, if it actually hooks them, it will inspire them to keep going. And then also, the last 10% of the game cannot fall apart, because when it does, the people who have stuck it through are just going to feel resentful of the way that the game ends. Like, you don't want the last impression to be negative, because now every time I think of Mega Man, if some of those bullshit levels had been in the middle, I would have had an easier time stomaching them. But because it's just this fucking mountain of shit you have to dig through on the farm, it puts this, like, thinking of the game is like not as bad, but there's this like negative emotion that I've associated with it because it was my last impression of the game. But that is Mega Man in Base. Not a bad game, has bad parts, but not nearly as bad as I think a lot of people claimed it to be. With Base, I think it's a pretty good challenge. I think as Mega Man, it might be a little too much. I wish it had just been designed, honestly, around Base. If you're going to make a game like this, just make it a Base game. You know, it's a spin-off. Do whatever you want. And actually design the game fully around him with his... I mean, he has a compelling reason. He has, I think, an interesting stake in the plot to take down this robot that Wily has made and then turned against him. But then, there's... King is actually under Wily's control the whole time. I think there's... You know what? I think one of the best parts about Mega Man is it's a very rewarding series to think about. Like, King is a robot who wants freedom for other robots. He's like a robot liberation leader. But his nature as a robot master means that he does not have true free will, and therefore can never truly be free. And that's a kind of interesting, tragic state for a character. A freedom fighter who can never truly be free in his mind, who will always be subject to the will of someone else. Robot Masters kind of have this... The thing that differentiates a Robot Master from a Reploid, from the, like in the X series, is that Reploids have true free will. Robot Masters do not. They have personalities. They can seemingly form their own personalities, but they can be programmed to do whatever you want. Now, robots like maybe Mega Man and Rock and Roll, don't have any, like, my kind of interpretation is that they don't have any particular programming besides be Dr. Light's children. But you can just reprogram a robot to do something, and it will not have a choice. It must do it. And they can feel any kind of way about that. Some of them, sometimes they might not like what they do, but they will do it anyway, and they will, importantly, consent to it. They will, even if it's just begrudgingly, like, I hate my job. I don't like doing my job, but whatever, I'll clock in. And taking King as to be this character who is like, has personality wise, he really does believe in the idea of robot liberation. But there's this tragic element that ultimately he will always, by his very nature, be under the thumb of someone else. That's like a cool idea for a character. Unfortunately, he's never shown up again. He does, I think, technically survive the events of the game. He kind of like suicide bombs, but I think Mega Man's ending shows him alive, like, or that he sends them a letter. But yeah, I think that's a cool thing for Base, because Base, what's funny about it is that Base is also, this is the story of why Base turns on Wily, because Base was only just programmed to kill Mega Man. So he can't exercise free will, but his programming doesn't necessarily contradict what he was programmed to, what he wants to do. He doesn't necessarily need Wily. Yeah, I wish this had kind of just been a base game, and I think the level design might have benefited from it. And yeah. Good game, worth playing. I think it is generally, if you're curious, definitely worth hunting down a pre-patched ROM. It can be a bit of a pain, but it is worth it. And it's a cool game, and I think it deserves to be a part of the canon. It is literally like Mega Man 8.5. And then finally, I want to talk about Touhou, Artificial Dream in Arcadia. So, I heard about this game a while ago. When did this come out? 2023. Oh, okay. That's actually a little older than I thought. This came out in 23, and it is, this was basically pitched to me as Shin Megami Tensei, but Touhou. And yeah, that's basically what it is. It is a send-up to the classic Shin Megami Tensei style kind of blobbers, I guess. I think I would describe them as such. Although they're largely focused on dungeon crawling. Dungeon crawling RPGs, like DRPGs is what they're called. It uses the core SMT systems for party management and recruiting and stuff, except all the characters are little Touhoos. Now, I like Touhou. I like the Touhou series quite a bit. I was actually playing a little bit of Touhou 12 earlier today. I forgot how many Touhou games I've actually played. I mentioned that I've beaten 2, but I have actually played quite a few more, just never beaten them. I find them fun to just like pop in and check out, see what the stages are, see what the cast is. You know, some of them have a really cool character. Some of them got Touhou 12, Undefined Fantastic Object, is what it's really called. Is a I don't know how much I like it. It's got a kind of annoying central gimmick, but man, it's got a real strong cast. That's where that Nazrin comes from, the funny mouse. That's where Kogasa, the girl with the cool like living umbrella with like the mouth and the big tongue and all that, comes from. There's some cool ones in there. Nue, who's got a very memorable design. I don't even know how to describe her. Yeah, that one's cool. Anyway, I want to say, first off, that this is a game that you can play with zero knowledge of Touhou. I think that a lot of people get intimidated by the sheer scope of the Touhou, like, cast, and they think that there's got to be all this super deep, involved lore because of all this stuff that they see. Well, obviously, no. I'm going to tell you right now, there is no deep lore. Most deep lore is just fan fiction. You're like, okay, Marisa Kirisame. She's in every single game as a playable character. Almost basically every single game. And you might think, oh, well, she's got to have all this, like, character arc and development. All this stuff's got to happen to... No, Marisa is a witch who lives in the forest. That is her entire character. It begins and ends there. She sort of has personality traits. Reimu is a shrine maiden for the Hakure Shrine. She tries to raise money for the shrine. That's her character. Sanai is a shrine maiden for the Moria Shrine. She's a little bit newer to the shrine maidening business. And then the plot of every game is just something's happening around Gensokyo. An incident is occurring. Investigate the incident and put a stop to it. And it's just something like Touhou 6, one of the most popular ones, and it's the first real bullet hell of the series. I don't think most people realize the first 5 Touhou games are all Breakout clones on the PC-98, and I don't think they're considered canon to anything afterwards. Touhou 6 was the first bullet hell one. That's where like some of the most popular characters come from. Ramelia, Flander, Sakuya, Mei Ling, Cerno is from there, Chen. Just all these characters. The plot of that game is there's a mist over the Gensokyo. Who's causing this? And they go to the castle. You just fight through 6 tough as nails stages, and you get to Ramelia, and it's like, oh, she's a vampire, so she wanted there to be darkness so that she could go out during the daytime. That's the big plot. Every Touhou game is like this. For the most part, Touhou... See, what's great about Touhou is that everything about it is really simple and straightforward. The gameplay is straightforward, good old bullet hell action. The music is really cool and interesting because Zune is a self-taught composer. The plots are very straightforward and simple. The setting is fun. Gensokyo is this... It's essentially like a Japanese fairy tale land where Japanese myth comes to life with other stuff sometimes. Touhou literally means Eastern. Or Oriental. It's a fun setting where you can just plop a bunch of stuff into. And the character design... There is perhaps no greater example of the difference between being an artist and being a character designer. Zun, by his own admission, is not a great not a great artist. He's definitely improved over the years, but if you look at like fucking, oh my god, Touhou 6 Sakuya is so goddamn funny to me. Her little face. Not the greatest artist, but a bang up character designer. Almost 95% of the Touhou cast is unmistakable from anyone else, and everyone is really cool and appealing. You can guarantee that almost every Touhou character is somebody's favorite just based off of design alone. They just click with them. And what's more impressive is that almost all of them basically could be described as cute girl in a big dress with a hat. That describes most Touhou characters. But just by changing out the parts, it actually makes sense because Zun based his character designs. They're actually less inspired by like anime and more by like dolls, like old vintage dolls with, just it's the same base, but you can put different dresses and accessories on them and stuff like that. And that's he just generates this gigantic cast of frumpy little ladies. I've always found very endearing. So you really don't need to know very much. And the plot of Artificial Dream in Arcadia is essentially just, there's an incident, investigate. And the rest of the game's plot is a series of essentially episodes that are excuses to get you to go around to different places in Gensokyo and see different characters and meet them. Basically, the main character is named Sumireko, she is like a girl from the human world who visits Gensokyo in her dreams. She manifests there as her in her dreams. What's super weird is that there are these two other characters, specifically one who is named Renko, and her friend Maribel, Sumireko, and Renko. And their deal is that they're the what do they do? Yeah. Yeah, okay. I don't know too much about them because they aren't in any of the games. They are the main characters of a series of albums that Zun put out. And Maribel dreams about being in Gensokyo and visits there in her dreams, and Renko learns about it through her. And they're part of like a club that investigates, what are they called? The Hifu Club? It's like like an occultic club that they're part of in their college, I think. So you're like, that's very similar to Sumireko. And they even look really similar. They have like the same hat and stuff. There is no confirmed relationship between them. I don't know. It's just there. It's there for you to postulate about. Anyway, Sumireko visits Gensokyo in her dreams and stumbles upon an incident that she is the only one who's investigating. What is this incident that's going on? A big tower has suddenly appeared in Gensokyo. It's called the Tower of Dreams, I think. And with it have come these strange, lifeless clones of a bunch of the Touhou characters. And Sumireko is able to hijack these to add them to her party, because this is an SMT game. So you basically just got to find out... she's able to take her smartphone into Gensokyo. And basically, the further levels of the Tower of Dreams get unlocked as she takes selfies at different locations around Gensokyo. Basically, as she makes memories. So, I haven't finished the game. I am 35 hours in. I think I can speak about it with some certainty. I imagine that there's going to be some kind of a building upon dreams and making memories, and the fact that she's dreaming this whole... she's going here in her dreams. And yeah, it's basically just an excuse to do some cool SMT combats with Touhou characters. So here's basically what SMT combat boils down to. And it's specifically the older school style. It's not the one more, or the press turn, whatever the fuck is the one version that they specifically actually the press turn is different from the one more. It's different. So you don't get like bonus actions during turns like you do in some of the later SMT games or some of the later Persona games, where you can just wail on enemies if you have their weakness. Instead, the way that it works is you form a party of sleepers by hijacking them. And the hijacking thing is a cool minigame where you play a little bullet hell segment and you have to delete their life bar. With patterns that are based off of the character's actual attacks in the games, which is cool. I literally recognize them from playing the games. And then you get the option of either recruiting them to your party, turning them into items, or turning them into money. So you can build up. This isn't like Pokemon where you're limited to 6 different Pokemon. The idea is basically that you are fighting. Sumireko is fighting alongside the sleepers, her allies that you recruit, and you can have a party of up to like a lot. I think I'm up to like 20 right now. I've purchased upgrades up to 20, and but you can only take 3 sleepers into battle with you. And much like SMT, it's not a game where you really grind that much. You can do a little bit of grinding if you want. But for the most part, if you come to a roadblock you will usually be at a level where it is real. If you're just going through the game, you will naturally level yourself to the point where you are probably able to take on the content. The problem is more that it's the composition of your team. Because there's a whole system of elemental and damage type weaknesses in this game. Like with SMT or Persona. That's another point of comparison. Same kind of deal. 4 different elements. Actually, no, there's like 6 different. Hang on. There's ice, fire, ice, lightning, force, and what is it called? Mind. Yeah, mind attacks. And then there are there's 2 types of physical. There's like bashing and piercing, I think. So there's like, yeah, so there's 6. I'm getting ahead of myself. My mind's moving too fast. There's 6 different damage types. No, that's 6. No, that's 7. What the fuck am I? Okay. Oh my god, I'm so bad at dude, I can't even count on my fingers. I'm so bad at math. Oh, good lord. There's 7 different damage types that I remember. I don't think I'm forgetting one. And you target them to hit weak points to deal more damage. There is an entire system of... So you don't really level up your sleepers. You can, and obviously them leveling up will increase their stats. But it's not the main way that you are increasing the overall strength of your party. It's actually through fusing them together to make new sleepers. It's, again, like I would describe the SMT system as the anti-Pokemon. It's not about sticking with one guy and leveling up and growing your bond, because Pokemon is about animal companionship and friendship and working together. And Shin Megami Tensei is about how the world is a brutal place and it's kill or be killed, fucker. There's demons walking around on the earth. And this is Touhou, bitch. This is hardcore. Look at all these cute, friendly girls. So, not quite as thematically resonant as its usage in SMT. But it is I do like the system. It can be a little bit... some of the criticisms of the SMT Demon Fusion system are that it can be a little bit overwhelming, because you're like, there's 1 trillion different combinations of sleepers that you could get to make the thing that you want to make, and what do I need? So there's a couple features, some of which are lifted from existing SMT games, some of which are, I think, unique to this one, although I'm not entirely sure. So you can just, like, select a sleeper in your party, and then it will show you what it will make, what the combination will make with every other one. You'll see what level they have. You will see what abilities they'll have and all their stats. You can see exactly what you'll get. There is also a party fusion list, which will show you every single possible sleeper that you can currently make with your party. Even ones that are out of your level range, because you cannot make sleepers that are a higher level than Sumireko is. Until you get an upgrade. So mainly, you are fusing together your sleepers to make stronger ones that are at higher levels and have stronger skills and better stats. And that's the way that you are increasing your party's strength. And if you're coming to a roadblock, you kind of just have to... Oftentimes, the problem is you have to just reshuffle your party. Oh, there's also a really nice... I think skill inheritance and skill transference is really good in this game. This is something that's always been kind of complained about as being very obtuse and difficult to understand. In the SMT games, a lot of them have this very convoluted system for which... So when you fuse a demon, it has like its base set of skills, but then it will also inherit certain skills from the materials made to create it. And which ones it gets is like seemingly, it's very difficult to parse. I think there is a system behind it, but it's kind of confusing and it's not that intuitive. In this game, a newly fused sleeper has a base moveset that they will always start with. And then you get to pick and choose skills from the materials that you're using to fuse it into it to fill out the rest of its move list. I think you can have maybe up to, I forget what it is, 10 skills total. And so let's say like 4 of them are set in stone. It will always have them. But you can then go down this big list of what the materials had. And also, it's not just the skills from, like, let's call them the parents. It's every single skill that those parents have, like, their materials had. You get the skills from the entire family tree. So I'm not just getting skills, the option to include skills from, like, this one sleeper, but also the sleepers that were used to fuse into that one, to fuse that one. So you get tons of options. And then also, you would just have the ability to take a skill from one sleeper and just give it to another one. It will destroy the original sleeper, but if you don't need it, that's fine. Also, once you fuse a sleeper, it will end up in the database, and you can just fuse it at any time. You can just make it at any time when you're at a terminal, which is like a designated thing. A terminal is like a designated room. All sorts of places like dungeons and different areas will have terminals for you to access. So that smooths over a lot of the experience, and it means that you can get much more quickly to the real meat and the cool stuff of this system, which is party composition and optimization. That's the really fun stuff, in my opinion. Like, that's where the game becomes challenging. Going through a fight, being like, okay, that boss kicked my ass, but that was a learning experience. I'm going to come back and I'm going to refine my strategy. What's so cool about this system, again, is because the level to which you are just outnumbering them, like outstatting them, outleveling them, is very minimal. You have to be able to think strategically. You can't just brute force numbers your way through. You have to have some kind of a game plan that's based off of the party composition. These are going to be my spellcasters that are going to hit the weak points. This is going to be one of my buffers. This is going to be like the healer, and then like the off buffer. Like that's probably the most common like core team composition. But you're always switching out who's doing what, and figuring out what you'll need. And some of them have really specific. Some of the boss fights have really specific patterns and behaviors, and you're like, fuck, I need a counter specifically to that. Are there any skills that can help me with that? Like, that buff that they cast on themselves just sucks. It just sucks to deal with. Let me get a sleeper with a skill that removes all enemy buffs. A lot of the characters have this, a cool aspect of the game is that a lot of the characters have unique, like, kind of, I guess I'd call it a signature move. It'll always be in the Japanese quote, Japanese brackets. Oddly, they're all very flavorful, but oddly, like, a lot of them are musical references, which is interesting because there's not a lot of musical references in Touhou. There was one that was like Pretty Hate Machine was one of the, I think that was, oh god, what's that, her name? I think that's Junko's one. What's another? I was recognizing a couple ones. Also, Remelia's his blood-sucking universe, which I appreciated. I guess vampire to vampire communication. I when I was getting together the materials for my leverless controller, I really wanted to get custom art, and I was kind of looking around for some cool artwork that I would want. And I found this neat piece of Touhou Guilty Gear crossover art with Slayer and Remelia that I really liked. But I think the resolution wasn't good for the size that it would have to get blown up to. So I eventually what I have is, It's artwork of Sakuya and Alice, who are my two favorite Touhou characters. I just think that they're really cool. Also, Sakuya is like a Dio reference. The Dio reference is split halfway between her and Remelia. Remelia gets to be the vampire who says, "How many breads have you eaten in your life?" And Sakuya gets to stop time and throw knives. But is not a vampire. She's just a really good maid. Yeah, the game just has a really good... First of all, I really enjoy the SMT system. And I like that a lot of this is a very dungeon-based game. Honestly, like it's all tile-based maps that takes place in first person where you're progressing through a tile-based dungeon. For the most part, you are playing the map more than you're playing the screen of the visuals. You are filling out all the different squares on this. If you love filling out squares like it's a Metroid game, you're gonna like this. You get a bonus every time you fill out an entire area. Different parts have different gimmicks. Some of the gimmicks I don't like. Some of them are annoying. Like the poison. There are multiple essentially poison swamps. Don't love those. Sometimes the game can go a little too long without giving you a save point. That's a little annoying. But for the most part, it's going through dungeons, filling them out, conquering them, and seeing all the cool new characters that you get to hijack and add to your roster. You get there's some other nice quality of life features. The save points are called anomalies, and it's pretty cool. It's basically, you save by waking up from your dream, and then you go back to the game by falling asleep again. And I'm pretty sure that the time of day that you see on screen reflects the time of day of that's actually like based on your system clock, which is pretty cool. When you wake up, so you go back, you wake up to save, and then you go back to sleep to return to the game. And then at a certain point, when the game kind of really starts opening up, you get the ability to just teleport between save points, which is great. It's very useful. Yeah, so I'm only 30 hours in. It's just kind of a fun game to chunk through. It's been it's given me a nice level of challenge so far. I really like the ways in which it stresses and tests my ability to think about my party and what skills I'm using and how I'm strategizing. I also like that gearing is very simple, as is often in these games, because you only gear for the one main character. You don't have to worry about anyone else. Yeah, it's a fun game. It's a fun game. I think that as far as this genre goes, it's probably a pretty good entry point just for how I imagine a lot of the aspects that you might find in an older title have been smoothed over. So if it sounds kind of cool to you, this whole system and all that, I would absolutely recommend it. It's a really good game. It's got great visuals, actually, for one. I haven't even mentioned the visuals. The one thing that I'll mention is that the menuing can be a little bit cumbersome. I kind of wish that you could do more. Like, the menus were less split up. So, like, changing out your party members and, like, who's in your active party is one menu. You use the skills of your party in a different menu from the skills menu. For like if you want to heal, if you want to use healing spells, which you're going to be using more than healing items. That's one menu. That's another menu. And then checking the status of your party members is a third menu. And the status screen, I just wish everything could kind of be done from like a single thing. Like go to the party menu and I can swap them out as I please. And then I could just like hit a button to expand into the more detailed status view, where you can also see like a detailed breakdown of the character's skills and what they mean and like all of their stats and stuff like that, and get like a little lore rundown, which is nice. If you press right on the status screen, you get a brief summary about what the character's deal is, which is actually great if you're not familiar with Touhou. Yeah, I wish that you could just like go to there, have like the party management menu, and then just like press a button, expand into the status menu, or press a different button to go into like quick skill use menu. That would be nice. But instead they're all split up. And the issue with it, another thing, I wish that there was a visual for the characters on the menus. Like I've said, the character designs in Touhou are great, and it's very difficult to get them mixed up. Some of them I get confused. But for the most part, they're all really striking and memorable, and you'd have a hard time getting them confused. But like the menus just show you them in like just their names. All you see is their names, and I've got 20 different Touhou characters, and they've all got like 10-syllable Japanese names. And a lot of them I know, but there's also a lot that I can't keep track of. Who is that? What is it? Just really like mid-boss characters. A mid-boss character from Touhou 14. Okay, from one stage. Just really minor characters that I don't remember, and I have to be like, who is that? What did they do? What do they look like? Once I see, if I have the visual, I know exactly what they look like. Yeah, maybe that would be nice. Like, I'm just picturing how I would redo the UI a little bit. You have that whole like all-in-one party menu, and then just on like the right side of the screen or something like that, just a little box that shows you the character's portrait as you scroll through them. That would be nice. It might be a little much to have like a thing beside every single character, but just to like when you like mouse over them essentially, or move the cursor over them. That might be better. Now I'm doing like UI UX critique. But yeah, it's fairly minor. In general, I think it's a really cool game. I would definitely recommend it. It's only like, how much is it on Steam? It's $10. It's $10. I'm sure it goes on sale for even cheaper. Absolutely worth the money. Yeah, really enjoy this one. Really enjoyed this one. I've been sinking a ton of time into it. I'm almost compulsively drawn to play it. So big thumbs up on Touhou Artificial Dream in Arcadia. And with that, I think I'm going to draw this to a close. I've been talking for a very long time, and I'm a little hungry. If you've enjoyed this episode, thank you so much for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, because I'm not going to read your thoughts out loud. Also, leave some suggestions for things to talk about on the 200th episode. And yeah, I'll start working. I'm going to start working on the video very soon. Maybe expect that out sometime February? I don't know. We'll see how fast I can work. Probably early February. I had that video on Hunchback, and I got the Patreon, and my coffee, and yeah, bye.